UFC 267, Saturday at a special time of 2 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe now to watch at ESPNplus.com/UFC.
Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays at 3 p.m. on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Listen, stream. Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays at 3 p.m. on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Listen, stream, and now watch. Search the Justin Kinner Show on Facebook to follow along.
ESPN Radio and on ESPN. Presented by Dr. Pepper.
We are Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
And into the end zone goes Chris Olave. KJ Hill, 6-yard touchdown catch. Right sideline and down he goes to the end zone.
WING 1410 Dayton's ESPN Radio. We're live. We're local.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
All right, happy Wednesday. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine and OGW Energy Resources. Again, happy Wednesday. Welcome in. I'm flying solo today. Kev Nash off. He'll be back tomorrow. Excited to be hanging out with all of you. The phone lines are open. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call in and jump in on the conversation. We got a jam-packed show coming your way today. Lots to get into that we will dive into coming up here momentarily. Keep in mind, with me hosting the show solo today, when I do bring you on, you will continue to hear the show on the phone. You're on hold. I'll bring you on, momentarily here, but no one will be answering, so keep that in mind. But just wanted to give you that heads up. A little different today with me flying solo, So there you go. Lots to dive into today. I want to open up with some Cleveland Browns. I know it's everyone's favorite team around here. Don't worry. I have not turned my back on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are still my top 5 team in the NFL. We put out our top 5 yesterday, and I do have the Bengals in my top 5. So by opening up with the Browns, I'm not dismissing the Bengals. We'll get to the Bengals matchup with the Jets coming up here momentarily. Let's be honest. This matchup between the Bengals and Jets coming up this weekend, it was boring coming into the season because we thought it was a matchup between two bad teams. Now it's a boring matchup because one team's actually really good and one team is so bad that it's just not even worth a game that anyone really gives a damn about, except Bengals fans, because it's an opportunity to say, hey, 8 games into the season, we're 6-2, and I think that's a huge opportunity coming up, but we'll talk about that here in a moment. I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns. I want to talk about Baker Mayfield as we open things up here this afternoon. We're live on Facebook. Keep in mind, we're live on YouTube. Head to Facebook, search The Justin Kinner Show. You could do that as well. We also have an opportunity to win some Monster Jam tickets coming up. Monster Jam going to be at the Nutter Center this coming up weekend. We have plenty of passes we're giving away, some really cool opportunities there, so I'll tell you how you can win those coming up here in a moment for those of you who would love to attend. I'll tell you how here shortly. So wanted to open up with this. Cleveland Browns, a lot of unknowns, a lot of question marks about the Cleveland Browns. I think a lot of people, and again, put your hate aside for the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield, and even me at times. Put that all aside. Because whether you like it or not, when this team's completely healthy, when all the weapons are, clicking on all cylinders like they were the first couple weeks of the season, they're a Super Bowl contender. They're a Super Bowl contender. They could beat any team in football. Now, sure, they've stubbed their toe along the way. They're 4-3. They're not even at the top of the division right now, and well, it's understandably so. And the players that you have that make you a Super Bowl contender are out due to injury. You no longer play like a Super Bowl contender. Now it's about getting healthy, being able to kind of escape some games with some big wins. They were able to escape Baltimore, the Broncos with the win this past Thursday. Was that an impressive win? No, I mean, the fact that, any win is a good win. I don't think it was that impressive of a win. I don't think that win convinced us of anything, but yet some people like to jump on this narrative and I told you it was going to happen, that the Browns don't need Baker Mayfield. I was waiting for that narrative to start to develop. It just took about a week, and then you started hearing the silliness come out of the mouths of a couple of ESPN analysts that I want to get into coming up here in a moment. Dominic Foxworth, the one I'm picking on here today. But an update on Baker Mayfield. It sounds as if, he's taken all, but Kevin Stefanski, head coach of the Browns, said today that Case Keenum is getting all the second team reps, Baker Mayfield getting all of the first team reps. Baker Mayfield, of course, will, at this point, barring any kind of setbacks, will be the starter against the Steelers this coming up Sunday. But not everyone is a big fan of Baker Mayfield playing for the Browns moving forward. Some like to say that, well, they don't need Baker Mayfield to play moving forward, that there's no point in risking playing Baker Mayfield, who, right now, even at 100% has limitations, which I have said in the past, but for the reasonings in which people don't want Baker to play is kind of silly. Dominic Foxworth was on ESPN's Get Up this morning. Here's what Dominic Foxworth had to say regarding Baker Mayfield and how the Browns should use him. He's not a fan of the Browns playing Baker Mayfield this Sunday against the Steelers, and here's why.
No, I think 100% of Case Keenum is better than like 60% Baker or whatever we got. And hopefully Baker can get more healthy as the season goes on, because it doesn't seem that he knows how to protect himself, because he had a portion of this injury before the game happened. Mm-hmm. This play happened while he's trying to play in a game and protect himself. So Baker needs to get right before they put him out there. He's not the type of guy that I think you need to rush back, because we saw this offense. It functioned pretty well without Baker, without both of their top running backs, without their tackles. They were able to get a win. So hopefully they can bide their time going forward without him.
That's the stupidest and silliest thing I've ever heard. I shouldn't say it's craziest thing I've ever heard, but it's right up there. Let's be clear. I knew this was going to happen. I knew that people were going to do this, that when the Browns won this past Thursday, which I figured there was a good chance that they could do, especially as they got a couple other weapons back. You had OBJ, you had Jarvis, you had a running back that went off for 140-plus yards, a third-string running back. Let's not act like it was Case Keenum who led them. You had a quarterback that finished with under 200 passing yards. Dominic Foxworth, are you kidding me? Dominic Foxworth, how can you actually sit there and say that? And also, you're a former football player, and, Kinner's trying to sit here and act like he knows more than you, but sometimes when you say something as silly as that, it's very easy for me to open up and say, Case Keenum marched the ball up and down the field for 199 yards and a team that put up, 17 points? Are you kidding me? Dearness Johnson was the reason that they won that football game, not Case Keenum. Case Keenum did what a backup quarterback is supposed to do. Go in there, don't lose the game, but he certainly as hell didn't win that game. People want to talk about Baker Mayfield being a game manager. You want to see a game manager? Watch Case Keenum. That's what he's been the majority of his career. He had one great season in Minnesota, coincidentally enough, under Kevin Stefanski, but everyone trying to make this dude sound like, oh, the Browns are holding Case Keenum back. Give me a break. Did you hear Dominic Foxworth? That 60% of Baker Mayfield, that Case Keenum 100% is better than Baker Mayfield 60%. That's not true. If you go back to the 2018 season, which was the last time that Case Keenum was a full-time starter in the National Football League, Case Keenum's Broncos were 6-10. Case Keenum threw for 3,800 yards. Case Keenum threw for 18 touchdowns. Case Keenum threw for 15 interceptions. Case Keenum completed 61% of his passes the last time he was a starter in the National Football League 3 years ago. And Dominic Foxworth is going to sit here and say that 100% of Case Keenum is better than 60% Baker Mayfield. Well, let's talk about 60% Baker Mayfield, because 60% Baker Mayfield, which is this season, okay, this season, he has a high. I mean, if you want to talk about Baker Mayfield this season, if you look at last year, which was his best season as a pro, Baker Mayfield's completion percentage is higher this year than last year. His completion percentage is up. He's on pace to throw for more yards. He's on pace to throw about that same 6, 7, 8 interception mark. He's not turning the ball over. The touchdowns, that can go up, of course, but if you also pay attention to how the Browns offense is run, the reason Baker's touchdowns are not up as far as, compared to last year, the rushing touchdowns for the Browns are through the roof. The Browns have scored 13 more touchdowns 7 weeks into the season than where they were last year. So, yes, the touchdowns are being scored. The Browns are averaging more points per game. They're averaging more total offensive yards per game. The offense isn't sputtering because of Baker Mayfield. The Browns offense is going the way it should. When you have the two best running backs in the National Football League in your offense, you also have a third-string running back that just popped off for 140 this past weekend. So that's the silliest thing I've ever heard, that 60%. So Baker Mayfield this season is playing 60% right now. He's playing at 60%. And yet last year was his best season as a pro, and his completion percentage is up. He's on pace to throw for more yards, about the same, less interceptions, which he doesn't turn the ball over. That's exactly what you need Baker Mayfield to do. So that's the dumbest thing I've heard. This is exactly what I was talking about a week ago when we were talking about why I was concerned about Baker not playing in that game against the Broncos, because we knew that was going to happen. The Broncos were going to, lose that game. If the Browns would win that game, the narrative would shift towards, see, they don't need Baker. Let's ignore the fact that they're playing an embarrassingly bad Denver Broncos team. I mean, they're so bad that they should be on the Bengals schedule, because that's about the Bengals schedule up until this past week against Baltimore. I was nitpicking the Bengals schedule, but you know what? They didn't just beat a good team in Baltimore. They kicked their ass. But there's been a lot of bad teams on that schedule. The Broncos aren't one of them right now, until later. But the Browns, that Broncos team could not have come at a better time. The fact that you had your tackles out, the fact that you had your two best running backs out, the fact that you had your starting quarterback out. There was a reason that the Cleveland Browns had a quarterback only throw for 199 yards. It's because he's not Baker Mayfield. I'm not going to waste your time and tell you that Baker Mayfield is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but the way people talk about him as if he is just some scrub, and that stuff just gets on my damn nerves, if you can't tell. But I knew it. If you're just tuning in, Dominique Foxworth on ESPN's Get Up this morning had this to say about Baker Mayfield one more time.
No, I think 100% of Case Keenum is better than like 60% Baker or whatever we got. And hopefully Baker can get more healthy as the season goes on, because it doesn't seem that he knows how to protect himself, because he had a portion of this injury before the game happened. Mm-hmm. This play happened while he's trying to play in a game and protect himself. So Baker needs to get right before they put him out there.
And what the hell does that even mean? Baker doesn't know how to protect himself. What does that even mean? If you want to criticize Baker for his injury, I'm all for it. I criticize Baker too, because I said Baker, of course, on one of his few interceptions on the season, throws the interception, his fault, and then goes to tackle the guy. That was Baker. So that wasn't Baker not knowing how to protect himself. Once again, Dominique Foxworth played the game. I know you know the game until you open your mouth, because when you say stupid stuff like that, it's hard for me to imagine that you actually played football, which I know he does, and he knows a million things more about football than I do. But when you say dumb things like that, it's hard for me to sit there and take you serious. So Baker Mayfield, we shouldn't play against the Steelers because, well, he doesn't know how to protect himself. What does that even mean? Keep in mind the other reason, too, that he also kept getting hit against the Cardinals is because his entire offensive line was out. This really isn't that hard. I know you guys don't like Baker Mayfield, and I'm probably just, screaming into a wall right now because nobody feels sorry for Baker. I don't need you to feel sorry for Baker. I just need you to stop using the same dumb logic that Dominique Foxworth uses and a lot of people who don't like Baker Mayfield. It's silly. It's silly. Sean Bolin on Facebook says the two best running backs in the NFL. Is that what you said? Sean, I think I did say that. That's not what I meant. I know they're not the two best running backs in the NFL. Derrick Henry is the best running back in the NFL. Derrick Henry is the second best running back in the NFL. Derrick Henry is the third best running back in the NFL. I meant the two running backs that lead the number one rushing offense in the NFL. But yes, good catch. I did not put it that. I did not mean to put it that way. So good catch as far as that's concerned. But yes, Baker Mayfield right now in a position to potentially play against the Steelers. And let's be honest, do you? And this is the question I have for Browns fans: 518-1410, 518-1410. I have to get the phone lines full during the commercial break, so give us a call right now: 518-1410. Do you agree with Dominique Foxworth? Is 100% of Case Keenum better than 60% of Baker Mayfield? 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call in and jump in on the conversation. I disagree with Dominique Foxworth like you wouldn't believe if you can't tell. Blood pressure's super high, and it's only 3:12 in the afternoon. 518-1410. Is Baker Mayfield at 60% better than, Case Keenum at 100%? Case Keenum threw for 199 yards against the Broncos. Dominique Foxworth tries to make it sound as if Case Keenum's the one that led the Browns to the win over the Broncos when it was clearly Ernest Johnson. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. But hey, let's move those goalposts around, shall we? 518-1410. Let's discuss next.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy, a high near 54. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, a low near 48. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers, a high near 63. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Weather is brought to you by Cullet Seal Coating, protecting the asphalt surfaces at your home, office, or commercial property. Introducing infrared patching, a new technology for your property. This service and more at culletsealcoating.com.
O'Reilly. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't let streaks or smearing on your windshield compromise your visibility. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see our selection. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades while you wait. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get in on the action. Well, no more, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide, with plans starting at just $35 a month with no contract. And get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for only $299, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required, actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
You may have heard that Allstate has new low auto rates, but isn't it time to see for yourself? Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
You love Zoom for video meetings? Now, choose Zoom to power your phone communications too. Zoom Phone works seamlessly within the Zoom app as your business phone system. Zoom Phone's secure HD audio and enterprise-grade reliability keep you connected to your teams and your customers. And it's easy to use on mobile, desktop, or desk phone. Empower your workforce with Zoom Phone. Zoom, how the world connects.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents. And Doug.
Don't you just love the smell of old books? Shh, this is a library. Sorry, ma'am. We're looking for a book titled Liberty Mutual Customizes Your Car Insurance so you only pay for what you need.
I don't think we carry that, but check nonfiction.
He really does devour literature.
Please leave.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits is also the home for value. Frickers. Frickers Everyday Values begin on Monday with boneless frickin' chicken wings. Tuesday offers traditional frickin' chicken wings. On Wednesday, enjoy a steak dinner. And on Thursday, frickin' chicken chunks. Kids eat free every day. And your favorite events are on TVs everywhere. The home for Everyday Values is the home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Frickers. Monster Jam. Coming to Wright State University Nutter Center this weekend. Brought to you by BKT Tires and Direct Auto Insurance. You have to see it live, so don't miss it. Visit monsterjam.com for event details.
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get in on the action. Well, no more, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide, with plans starting at just $35 a month with no contract. And get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for only $299, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required, actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? So it's about time for an oil change? We've got what you need. Right now, you can get 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic or synthetic high mileage motor oil and an STP extended life oil filter for just $36.99. And you can get it all fast, your way. Just order online with our free same-day store pickup or next-day delivery.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Start your job today at AutoZone.com. Restrictions apply.
Fever is the leading symptom of COVID and the flu, and the only way to reliably detect it is with an accurate thermometer. Be vigilant and be accurate with the Exergen Temporal Scanner, whose accuracy has been proven in more than 100 clinical studies. Don't rely on non-contact thermometers. They are proven to be inaccurate and will not reliably detect a fever that might mean COVID. Be sure to seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Learn more at Exergen.com.
The $10 Tastemaker from Pizza Hut. Personalize yours with your favorite sauce, crust, and up to 3 toppings and make the pizza you've always dreamed of. It's so beautiful. No one out-pizzas the Hut. Ask for offer. Not available in some locations. Exclusions apply. Extra charge per pan. Not available on stuffed crust.
Would you like a cleaning product that can be used in the garage, the laundry, and the kitchen, and save space in your cabinet? Hi, I'm Bruce Fabrizio, inventor of Simple Green. To learn more, visit us at simplegreen.com.
Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. NFL fans, the season is finally here. Get your picks submitted at wingam.com. Click on contest and enter the Pro Football Challenge. Weekly winners will win $20 in Frickers Fun Bucks. Get to wingam.com and get your NFL picks submitted now. Incredible! Good luck.
No, I think 100% of Case Keenum is better than like 60% Baker or whatever we got. And hopefully Baker can get more healthy as the season goes on, because it doesn't seem that he knows how to protect himself, because he had a portion of this injury before the game happened. Mm-hmm. This play happened while he's trying to play in a game and protect himself. So Baker needs to get right before they put him out there. He's not the type of guy that I think you need to rush back, because we saw this offense. It functioned pretty well without Baker, without both of their top running backs, without their tackles. They were able to get a win. So hopefully they can bide their time going forward without him.
All right, we welcome you back. I'm Justin Kinner, hanging out with you here on a Wednesday. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call in and jump in on the conversation. And again, the conversation stems, of course, with Baker Mayfield being held out of last Thursday night's game, Thursday Night Football, with that torn labrum when the Browns beat the Broncos 17-14 in a game that the backup quarterback, Case Keenum, threw for a whopping 199 yards, a stat line that if Baker Mayfield threw for, he would be crucified for. And let's be honest, it's not just Baker Mayfield, that's any quarterback. No quarterback out there, even the best backup in the NFL in Case Keenum. Let's be honest with you. You mean to tell me that Brandon Allen, Bengals fans, in all seriousness, if Joe Burrow tweaks an ankle and needs to be held out for a game, wouldn't you expect a little bit more out of Brandon Allen than 199 yards? Right? Am I right? Let's be real. Stop with this whole thing. Case Keenum is the best and worst thing for the Cleveland Browns, because he's the best thing for the Browns because he is one of the top backup options to go to. But at the same time, when the Browns have success with Baker Mayfield, it's not because of Baker Mayfield. But when Case Keenum and the Browns win, it's, man, look at Case Keenum. You heard Dominic Foxworth. I mean, the offense looked fine. They didn't miss a beat. Are you kidding me? They didn't miss a beat. How can you say that? What do you mean they miss a beat? That's the most foolish thing I've heard. Dominic Foxworth, love his work on ESPN. Hell of a player. He's played in the NFL. He knows way more about football than me. Not denying that. But that doesn't excuse people who played football and know football. It doesn't excuse them for saying silly things like that. Because that is strictly all about, we don't like Baker Mayfield. And that's fine. Baker brings that upon himself. But again, you don't like it, fine. You just can't say silly things like that. The Browns offense didn't miss a beat. If you really want to talk about why the Browns offense didn't miss a beat, there's a number of factors there. Factor number one, you're playing the Denver Broncos. That's probably the biggest factor. Factor number two, if you want to talk about why the offense didn't miss a beat, it's because they ended up getting 140 plus yards from Dearness Johnson, who is not the backup running back, but he's the backup to the backup. He's the assistant to the assistant to the assistant. He's Dwight Schrute's assistant. I mean, that's who Dearness Johnson is. And that's not a slight at him. That just speaks volumes about the depth that the Browns have at running back, right? That's why. You think that if Dearness Johnson played like an actual third-string running back with Case Keenum's 199 yards, do you even think that Cleveland scores? Let me answer that for you. No, they wouldn't. 199 yards is not going to get it done. Now, technically, he did throw for a touchdown, so they would have scored, but they wouldn't have scored more than once. Dearness Johnson's why they won that football game, not Case Keenum. They're for 199 yards. Bengals fans, I'm telling you, if Case Keenum's the best backup quarterback in the NFL, that's kind of sad that you're going up against the Denver Broncos and you only threw for 199 yards. I'm pretty sure Brandon Allen could throw for 250 against the Denver Broncos. And Brandon Allen's not Baker Mayfield. Brandon Allen's not Joe Burrow. Brandon Allen is your typical backup. Case Keenum, as I said, I have a problem with that. So Dominic Foxworth earlier today on ESPN's Get Up said that, well, 100% of Case Keenum is 100% better than 60% of Baker Mayfield. Well, you got to understand that, and that's not true. That's not true. Baker Mayfield's been playing at 60% all season since week 2. And when he was in week 1, he threw for 300 plus yards, multiple touchdowns, like Baker was throwing it around left and right. Gets hurt in week 2. He's been playing pretty much the entire season beat up. And his numbers are on pace to be all career highs and everything. Total yards, completion percentage. All right, career low in interceptions. He's on pace for that as well. Touchdowns, sure, are down. But as I said earlier, through week 7, the Cleveland Browns have 13 more rushing touchdowns than they did a season ago at this time when they still had Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, okay? So the offense, the ground game, the run game for the Browns is significantly better than it was a year ago, and that was one of the main reasons they were winning a year ago. So that's not true at all. Keith Tolliver on Facebook says, definitely would rather have 100% Case Keenum over 60% Baker. Another week of rest for Baker and avoiding a chance of getting hurt. Go back and watch the second half of the Broncos game. Willis looked terrible. Not denying that Willis looked terrible, but this isn't about Willis and them. I mean, yes, it is kind of about them to a certain extent because in that game against Arizona, that was the most beat up the offensive line had been all season. And Baker got beat up a lot in that too. But people forget Baker Mayfield also completed 68% of his passes in that game. All right. He was throwing for a lot of yards in that game. He was throwing for a lot of touchdowns. In fact, if OBJ doesn't drop that ball inside the 5, the Browns make it a 10-point game heading into the fourth quarter. It's a completely different ball game at that point. All right. The second OBJ dropped that ball, and then you also, you had guys go down all at the same time within that. Basically, just it's like they threw in the flag. They threw in the towel. They were done. Not an excuse. That's the reality of it. Should they have kept playing hard? Yes, but so everything that can go wrong went wrong for Cleveland in that game. I'm not making excuses for that game 2 games ago, but that's the caliber of opponents they have coming up that, to sit there and say, well, he should rest. By the way, ready for this? If you're resting him against the Steelers because you're worried about him getting hurt so you can have him against the Bengals a week from Sunday, I fear the Bengals defense way more than I do the Steelers, and that's a statement that I never thought I would actually utter heading into the season. And the Steelers have the pass rushers that Baker should fear, but guess what? So do the Bengals. So do the Ravens. So does everybody else. Baker Mayfield's arm is not going to get better moving forward. It needs surgery. It's not going to heal. It's just going to, you're just hoping that it doesn't pop out. And if you're not playing him this Sunday because you're afraid of further injuring the arm, then you might as well shut him down now. But if you're not shutting him down because of that, then you just need to let him play until basically he's kind of put out of his misery a little bit, right? Like it's basically what it comes down to. Resting him and sitting him out, that's not going to help Baker Mayfield. That's already been determined by team doctors, that it's something that's going to have to be addressed by surgery. It's something that if he can basically handle the pain, he could play through it. But I don't want to hear that, 100% of Case Keenum is better than 60% of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's been playing at 60% all season. And as I said earlier, the last time that Case Keenum played an entire full season as a starter back in 2018, he threw for 3,800 yards. Okay, not bad. But he threw 18 touchdowns, not good. He threw 15 interceptions, also not good. So if that's 100% of Case Keenum, and by the way, that was 3 years ago. If that's 100% of Case Keenum and Baker's 60%, okay, here's Baker's 60% again as we sit here and go through this. Baker Mayfield at 60% is completing 68% of his passes. A career high. He's on pace. He already has 1,500 passing yards. Also a career high to week 7 in the season for him throughout his first 3 years in the league. This is your number 4. This is the most amount of passing yards he has had 7 weeks into the season, his entire career. So he's on pace to throw for more yards than he ever has in the season. He's on pace to throw, have a higher completion percentage than any season that he's had up until this point. All right, the touchdowns are down, but as I said earlier, that's not a result of Baker not being able to throw touchdown passes. That's more of a result of there being 13 more rushing touchdowns for the Browns in week 7 than what they had in week 7 a year ago. The Browns' offense with the run game is the most dominant in football, and there is a reason that they rely on that. You don't go away from what's the most dominant facet of your game just to allow your quarterback to throw touchdowns. Now, is he Patrick Mahomes or Joseph Burrow? No. But I promise you, if Joe Burrow was the quarterback, let's say if the Bengals had they have Joe Mixon, solid running back, but if they had the two running backs that the Browns have, it would be silly to continue to let Joe Burrow throw as much as he does in spite of handing it off to the best run game in football, right? Like, you have to find a balance. And that's really what it comes down to. Baker's not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, so you don't have the same rules for him as you would Patrick Mahomes. The Browns are smart by continuing to hand the ball off. Why? Because no one can stop it. It's not the Browns managing Baker Mayfield. Again, you don't manage him like you would Patrick Mahomes, but they're not over-managing him the way you guys are trying to paint this picture to be. But I just told you right now, if you look at the numbers for Baker Mayfield at 60% is on pace to blow all of his numbers last year away. And that was his best season as a pro. Baker Mayfield at 60% is a lot better than 199 passing yards in a game. So, no, I'm not going to believe that. If your excuse is, well, we just want him to rest against the Steelers for one more week of rest. Again, rest isn't going to heal that arm. Rest isn't going to do anything. So if they're fearing that he is going to definitely get hurt by playing again, then shut him down now and call it a season, for Baker at least. Do I think that to dominate Foxworth's point, can the Browns continue playing at a high level with Case Keenum? They can continue playing at a level with that offensive line and run game. They could still be in a position to win a lot of games moving forward, but you're not going to convince me that they are better without Baker Mayfield, and you're not going to convince me that they're not going to miss a beat without Baker Mayfield as well. That is not the case. All right. If Joe Burrow goes down for Cincinnati, do they take a step back? Yes. Why? Because it's a passing offense that heavily relies on Joe Burrow's ability to get the ball to Jamar Chase. If he is out, Brandon Allen is going to connect on some passes to Jamar Chase and to Boyd and to Higgins, and the Bengals offense, they'll still be solid. They'll be in better position than they were a year ago. But that's the difference. You take Baker out of the Browns offense, they still have what makes them click, and that's the run game. But his passing ability also complements the run game, which makes them dangerous when everyone's 100%. People keep bringing up the Cardinals game. That's not the Browns offense. The offensive line was not there. The offensive line is getting healthier. A lot of guys returning to practice this week. They'll be healthier moving forward. The Browns will be better moving forward, and the Browns will be better with Baker Mayfield than they will Case Keenum. 518-1410. Let's go to James. James, welcome. How are you? James, you there? All right. 518-1410. 518-1410. That's the number to call in and jump in on the conversation. James, we got you. No, we do not. All right, we'll figure that out. 518-1410. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Let's go to the Facebook feed. The Facebook feed fascinates me a bit, too, just seeing everyone's different reactions to this. Jake Whiting talks about it was a super windy night. I'd honestly give Case the benefit of the doubt. I'd have trust in Keenum over Brandon Allen. That's fine, but Jake, do you have trust in Keenum over Baker Mayfield? And if you say yes, I'm going to start being mean to the Bengals again because I know you're a Bengals fan. So there's a lot of pressure on you, Jake. He said, they didn't miss a beat because they do what they do, and that's run the ball. I'm not even hating on Baker. They did miss a beat, though. That's not true, Jake. Baker Mayfield with the pass game complements what they do with the run game. The run game is the explanation point to the offense. That's how they punch it in. That's how they cap off drives. That's what they do. But how do they get in scoring position to allow the running backs to get there in the first place? Moving the ball up and down the field, which, yes, has a lot to do with the run game, but it's Baker's ability to pass the ball as well. That's not going to be there with Case Keenum. And now, you know what? I almost hope that this is a situation where the Browns do not have Baker Mayfield on Sunday versus the Steelers, so that we could just watch how bad they're going to be with Keenum at quarterback, and then Baker comes back and then, of course, beats the Bengals, which will happen. I promise you that much. Baker Mayfield, if he starts against the Bengals, the Browns are beating the Bengals, and then I will get the last laugh, and you all have it coming because I've had to deal with so much crap this week, and I'm going to have to hear it all next week. But it's all coming to an end here in just less than a week and a half. So I could tough it out. I'm a tough guy. I could deal with it. Let me see about getting these phone lines fixed, folks. 518-1410. I promise you, I see a lot of you calling in. I'm going to get to you the second I send it off to this commercial break. So help me out by being patient. Don't stop calling in. 518-1410. Let's hear from you on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Some people think fall is the best time of the year. It may also be a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
Do you or any of your family members, neighbors, or friends own a property that you just want to be done with it? If so, call TurboTrack Realty today for an all-cash offer, and we can close within days at 614-470-2000. Would it be convenient for you to take what you wanted and leave the rest behind? Great, I'll buy it. Call 614-470-2000. I buy properties as is. Make no repairs. Take what you want and leave the rest behind. We make selling easy. I buy vacant properties, pre-foreclosures, and inherited homes. I also buy apartment buildings, rental portfolios, divorces, death in the family, back taxes. I even buy my tenant won't pay me the rent houses. Call TurboTrack Realty today for an all-cash offer, and we can close within days at 614-470-2000, 614-470-2000.
Hey, here to tell you about my friends at Cordell Transportation. They're now hiring Class A CDL drivers and offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily, dedicated lanes, and no-touch freight. Brand new equipment as well. Medical, dental, vision, and company-paid life insurance. Call Cody right now. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Some people think fall is the best time of the year. It may also be a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
Hey everybody, it's Stephen A. Smith, and everyone knows my feelings on Cowboys fans. But really, Justin Kenner, you're a Cowboys fan and a Browns fan? Good Lord have mercy. I don't know what the hell to do with y'all. I really don't.
It's the Justin Kenner Show with Kev Nash. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio.
We are back. I'm Justin Kenner with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio, the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Orion Sports Medicine and OGW Energy Resources. We'll continue to go back to the Facebook feed. I believe we got the phones back up and rolling, so give us a call, 518-1410. Get to those calls coming up here in just 15 seconds. I want to go back to responding. So Jake Whiting on Facebook in response to, of course, the talking about the backup quarterback in Case Keenum. Y'all pay him $15 million a year to be a backup. He better be one of the best backups in the league. Jake, if you're going to say foolish things, you at least need to get it right. He's not $15 million a year. Not $15 million a year. Definitely not $15 million a year. So just throwing that out there. Okay, come on now. But it's $6 million a year. I know what you're saying. They pay him more than any other backup in the NFL. And there you go. So I get what you're saying. He is expected to be better than that. But Chris Schlop says Baker has 4 games under 250 yards. That is not great. Chris, until your quarterback finally threw for 400 yards in a game this past Sunday, your quarterback had the same amount of passing yards as Baker Mayfield. Stop with the stupidity. I'm not in the mood for it today. I'm really not. And I get it, Schlop. Your goal since this show started, even back when it was Schlemmer and I, was to say the absolute most stupidest things you absolutely possibly could come up with to try to get a rise out of me. And most days I'm the bigger man and I'm 5'5". But today, that's not today. I'm for whatever reason, I don't know if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I have no clue. I have no clue what my problem is. I'm just not in a good mood. And you are the last person that I want to see or read messages from when I'm in this mood. And I don't even really know you. What I do know of you is that you are obnoxious and you do everything you can to get under my skin. And I have no problem admitting that on a day like today, I'm having a horrible day, that you are succeeding. So congratulations. But like I said, you are not allowed to criticize Baker Mayfield for his 250 yards in 4+ games, because you know what? Up until Joe Burrow finally had his breakout game this past Sunday, he had 60 more passing yards than Baker Mayfield heading into this past week. That's it. Now that numbers, it separates widely because, and by the way, I'm not knocking Joe Burrow here. I'm telling you, he had a kick-ass game. I don't even think he was playing bad in weeks 1 through 6. All I'm telling you is every time you guys try to tell me how bad Baker was, until this past Sunday when Baker didn't play and Joe Burrow goes off for 400-plus yards, yes, until that point, they were pretty damn even. So I just want to throw that out there as far as that's concerned. Philip Reed on Facebook says, I have seen the Steelers through this year. Defense is good. Offensive line is horrible, and Ben is old. Browns could have a bunch of sacks like when they played the Bears. Coming from a Steelers fan, Browns are 3.5 point favorites, I believe. Yes, they are 3.5 point favorites. I agree with you. Like I am like not knowing what the offense is going to look like. Like Nick Chubb is on pace to return against the Steelers this coming up weekend. Baker Mayfield's on pace to play against the Steelers this coming up weekend. Jarvis, OBJ, some guys have been held out of practice this week. They're kind of banged up a little bit. Some of those are precautionary sit-outs more so than actually not being able to participate. So it's really, we're going to get a more clear visual of what that matchup's going to look like as we get closer. But if they have Baker, they have Nick Chubb, that offensive line's back and everything. And then with that defense alone, I agree. It should be, the defense should have one of its best games of the year, like what we saw against the Bears. But to be fair to the Steelers, they're way better coach than the Bears. Even with that banged up offensive line, I don't anticipate as bad of an outing for the Steelers offense as what we saw against the Bears. But Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, we talk so much about what the stars on the offense need to do to lift the team when they have guys out. I think it's time that Myles Garrett does the same thing. I think it's the same, against the Bears, that's one thing, but this is a much needed game. It's a divisional game. The Browns have to win this one. The Browns have to win this one because they lose this one, they're in last place. They're in last place in the AFC North. And I know I've been made a lot of excuses, as you guys like to say, about the injuries, but when you have I made an excuse against the Cardinals. I was annoyed as hell with everybody that was criticizing the Browns for the loss against the Cardinals because everyone, they lost common sense. Every one of your stars is out and you're sitting there trying to hold, second string guys to first string expectations. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life, but that's what most of you guys did. Shame on you. But against the Steelers this coming up week, even without Baker Mayfield, the Browns should still be able to pick up a win against the Steelers because of the fact that the defense is there, the offense is there as far as getting healthier. Now, you're probably saying, but Justin, you just said this whole time that the Browns need Baker Mayfield more than Case Keenum. Yes, again, common sense. I could see how some of you guys lack that and have an issue with understanding that. But yes, although the job could still get done by handing it off and attacking the Steelers that way, your best chance of winning is still to have Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's actually beat the Steelers back-to-back games, looking to make it a third on Sunday. Can they win with Case Keenum against the Browns if they have Nick Chubb with Dearness Johnson with that offensive line back? Yes, I think they have a chance to beat the Steelers on Sunday. But do I feel like 1,000,000% more better about their chances with Baker Mayfield under center? Yes, I do. And I think the majority of Browns fans would agree with me. 518-1410. So Chris goes on to say Baker is done for the year. The Browns don't have a chance against the Bengals. Whatever. 518-1410. Let's go to, who do we have? We have Jack. Jack, how are you, my friend? Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for being patient. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I like Baker and that. And I mean, just go back to his statistics. He broke the record for coming out of college for touchdowns and that. And he's had 4 or 5 different offensive coordinators in this whole time. And that one thing worries me though, and social media, you can't believe everything on there, but supposedly Baker went to a second doctor, and one of the doctors told him if he keeps playing this year, he could ruin permanently. He could ruin his career. I don't know if that's true or not. I hope not. But if that's the case, I'd rather shut it down, and because I want Baker around. I think he's above average quarterback. That's for sure. Maybe he's not in the top 4 or 5, but I think he can break that top 4 or 5 if he's healthy. And he really is that good. And the way they're playing it, running, you need to run the ball. And Ernest Johnson looked great the other day. And I even told a friend of mine, I said, Chubb got hurt his knee or whatever, and Hunt. I said, why aren't they using the other guy? And I'd seen him before in that preseason, but Johnson, he looked pretty good. Or I don't know if it's Johnson or Jackson, but
You're fine.
Anyway,
I called him Ernest earlier, and I forgot the
Ernest.
it's dear. Yeah,
Ernest.
so I just call him Ernest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, he looked great, and he almost has a sense that he sees, where to cut back sometimes when maybe they're in an open hole or something. I don't know. It's just his vision seems really good too, in that. So he finds the spots to run. Man, I'll tell you, bounce it outside when he needs to. But really, if Baker, if the one on social media, they said if he continues to play with the way he is, I don't know if that's tore all the way or partially tore. The one doctor said it could ruin his career. I don't want that. I mean, I think he's better than Keenum even now. I mean, how bad was his arm when he threw that touchdown just before halftime?
Mm-hmm.
And what was it, 64 yards or something?
It was the Hail Mary. And that's a good point, too. And Jack, that's the point I've been trying to bring up to everybody. Everyone's like, well, I wouldn't play him at 60%. I'm like, if you guys haven't been paying attention, 60% Baker Mayfield, like he's on pace right now to set career highs in total passing yards and completion percentage and everything else. Like the guy's moving, he's doing what he's supposed to. He's better this year than last year. It just doesn't feel like it because of, the weapons around him going down. If everyone was healthy and Baker and the Browns were losing and Baker was, not playing well, it's one thing. But when Baker's still playing well with everything else crumbling around him, it's just Baker's an easy target, which he brings that upon himself. So I can't defend him as far as that goes. But my goodness, people are just lacking common sense with how to evaluate.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as Odell Beckham, he's coming off an injury. He dropped a few balls that were right there. I've seen a few that were overthrown and stuff, but a lot of it is pressure on the quarterback not stepping in the ball and everything. But the one thing that really concerns me is some of these receivers, the teams they're playing are wide open. So they got to get together on their defensive backfield. I mean, some of these guys are 10, 20 yards out there all by themselves and catch the ball and walk it in. So they got to get that figured out. What the heck's going on there? But if Baker, if it's not going to affect him, I just soon have him play. I think Keenum is admirable, but I think, like you said, he's probably one of the better backups in football. And they can win some games with him. But I think there was one point they said he lost 11 out of his last 12 games he started at one point. And I thought, that's not very good. And you can't always blame the quarterback. I realize that too. So, but if it's not going to affect Baker, I'd like to have him in there. I do agree. He's better even injured, I think, than Keenum in that.
Absolutely. But
I do not want to permanently damage that. They're got to start over and looking for a new quarterback. Because if, what the social media said, the doctor said, he needs surgery 6 to 8 months. And if that's the case, he needs to get surgery and then get Keenum and maybe get somebody else come in as a backup or a starter for the time being. But I don't want to damage Baker because I really think Baker, look how long it's taken us to find a decent quarterback. And I sure don't want to ruin that. So
no,
I
Jack,
hope he's not pressing it, or I hope they shut him down if it is going to permanently damage him, because I don't want to lose him. That's how good I think he is.
Jack,
I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely, Jack. It's a good hearing from you. You take care.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
518-1410. Okay, Jack brings up quite a few good points. One of them is not wanting to further, as far as Baker Mayfield, if a doctor has come out. And by the way, I'm going to be consistent here because I've said this, and I'm not a hypocrite. You guys think I'm a hypocrite. You guys think I'm just a hater, but I actually do call it pretty fair. You guys think that I only praise the Browns and only bash the Bengals. Well, keep in mind, the Browns have actually been good the last couple of years. The Bengals have not until now. So, of course, all you hear is me bash one team and praise the other. That's because one team's bad, one team's good. But I have not forgotten who the Cleveland Browns are. The Cleveland Browns, you strip all the recent success down, and they're still that embarrassment of a franchise. The Browns are a joke of a front office. They are a joke of a franchise in regards to how they have been run. I have always said this, that 1 to 2 to 3 years of success does not wipe out decades of failures. So I haven't forgotten who the Browns are deep down. And sometimes things like this happen that remind me who the hell the Browns are. Because I'll give the last caller, Jack, this. Jack brought up a good point about, well, the doctor said that it could potentially end his career if, they continue to throw him out there. Let's say that's the case. I don't know what doctor said that. Not sure what social media article he talked about. But I have read a couple things that, the reason you went and got a second opinion is because you don't like the first, right? Like, that's really we do all do that in life. I don't like what you have to say about my team, so I'm going to go over here and find somebody who will tell me nice things about my team. That's how you crybaby fans act half the time. That's what we do in life. The Cleveland Browns, I think, are handling this very poorly because, and depending on what comes out of this, I got annoyed with Baker Mayfield last week because Baker Mayfield said, I'll decide if we play. I get to decide if I play. And I said, no, you don't. And the only reason Baker is saying that and doing that is because he's been made to feel like he does get to make that decision. And why is that? Kevin Stefanski came in last year and just totally revamped the culture of the Cleveland Browns. I was a huge fan of Kevin Stefanski. I'm starting to become a little irritated with Kevin Stefanski because, for one, in-game play calling decisions have been a little rough. I don't think that he, everyone gave him credit for that big win against the Broncos. It was not a big win against the Broncos. You were a very bad, very bad roster that night going up against another very bad roster that night. You just sucked less than they did. Okay, let's just be honest. The Browns didn't beat the Broncos. They just weren't as bad as the Broncos that night. There was two horrible rosters going at one another, two rosters that were beat up and tore down from the coming in. That was a big win. Stefanski, if you want to know my grade for him at the not so halfway point of the season, he gets a D. And it's not because of the win-losses necessarily. The fact that they're 4-3 with all the injuries and they're still a game out of first place. Thank you, Bengals, for that one. That's a success in itself, but they could be a lot further along. Because I do think that the decision with how to handle Baker Mayfield has been a mess. Well, every time we hear anyone comment to the media, it's, well, we'll see. And the reason that bothers me is because I have no faith that they actually, behind the scenes, know what the hell they're doing. The Cleveland Browns are still the Cleveland Browns. When people say they're going to Browns it up, I really don't get mad at that because they're probably right. Which is why I get mad at the Bengals fans. When things are going well for a couple weeks, you guys act like that eliminates, oh, man, this isn't the same old Bengals. Let's just relax. 1 week doesn't mean anything. It's the same thing with Cleveland. 1 season doesn't mean anything either. Last year was a great year. All right, they bring back the same exact roster. In fact, they added even more to it. There should have been more, and I feel like that has not been the case. The defense has been fairly healthy. The defense is what I've been more annoyed with than anything. Now, you're probably saying, well, that's the defensive coordinator's responsibility. It ultimately goes back to the head coach and continuing to let that same spot bleed and not do anything to make it better. But if Baker Mayfield does go out, and doctors have warned them not to let him go out, and they let him go out anyway, and he does have a season-ending or career-ending injury, then that is on the Cleveland Browns, and that is the same level of stupidity that I put the Bengals in last year for how they handled Joe Burrow. It will be equally dumb, and you will hear me equally tear them apart the way I did the Bengals last year. Because right now, if the Browns have a responsibility to protect Baker from himself, and every day that Baker addresses the media and says, I think I'm pretty good to go for Sunday, that doesn't sound like they're protecting him from himself. I'm not advocating that they bench him, but if the reports are true and accurate, that his shoulder is one good pop away from being done, maybe for his career, then yes, that is the Cleveland Browns being reckless. And there you go. And I think that Baker Mayfield, his skill set, like who he is as a quarterback, not being a top 5 quarterback. He's not up there in the upper level with Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and even Justin Herbert and those guys. He's not those guys. Because of that, they want to protect him, but they don't want to protect him. They're not treating him like a rental car, but they're also not treating him like that new, that brand new car off the lot either. They're treating Baker like a used car, not a rental. Where we want to protect our used car, but we're not going to protect him like our brand new car, but we're not going to run him into the ground like a rental. So they're being a little reckless here. They're taking a chance by rolling him out there. If Baker was a brand new, beautiful, brand new car, you'd be cautious with him. You'd put him in the garage every night. You wouldn't let him, you wouldn't let, the wind and the wind and everything just kind of beat up on the car overnight, right? Like you'd want to do everything you can to protect him. They're like, should we put the car in the garage tonight? Nah, it's fine. Just leave it out there. We're supposed to storm. Might hail a little bit. She'll be fine. Right? Like that's kind of what I feel like the Browns are doing. And that's the problem I have is they're being a little bit reckless because they know Baker's not the Aaron Rodgers of the world that you have to over protect, right? They're treating Baker the way the Bengals treated Burrow last year, to be honest with you, where, He's a shiny new toy, but we don't need to make sure that, we cover him up at the end of the night and protect him. No, just throw him out there to the wolves, right? So if Baker's arm is as bad as what some reports say, then shame on the Browns for even allowing him to be in position to make that kind of decision to begin with. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio. So going back to the Facebook feed, I want to make sure I'm getting everyone's take on this too. Where did that go? Either way, I'll continue to look through these and pull out the best ones. But, how about Chad? Chad's a smart one here. Chad says, Bengals fans talking crap when Kinner has pretty much praised the Bengals the whole week. Why? That's a good question. Why? I've even played their song. I was singing the song earlier in the week. I felt like, America's Got Talent might be after me. Simon Cowell might say, hey, you're the winner. Like, what's the golden ticket or whatever the hell they do? Like, yeah, that's me. I nailed the song. So shame on you Bengals fans. This is why I'm not nice to you guys, because even when I'm nice, you still say stupid things like schlop. It's unbelievable. You guys drive me up the wall. Sean Boland says, Kinner, would you rather have Joe or Baker? Right now, the trajectory for Joe Burrow will surpass Baker Mayfield. But until I see it, I'm not ready to say that he is any better or worse than Baker Mayfield. I'm being 1,000,000% serious here. Because that one game this past weekend, that was the best game we've ever seen from Joe Burrow. Before that, there was a lot of interceptions. Before that, there was a lot of inaccuracies at times. There was not but Joe Burrow is just showing glimpses of greatness, but he hasn't been able to put it all together. And until he does it consistently, I'm not ready to say that he is for sure 1,000,000% better than Baker Mayfield, because had the injuries not happened this year, Baker's trajectory still going up as well. I'm in the minority there, but I am not willing at this point to say that Joe Burrow is 1,000,000% the best quarterback to have over the other one. I'm not willing to go there yet. I'm not 100% sure, folks, that the Browns are better with Joe Burrow today. That if the exact scenario exists right now, I am not convinced that Joe Burrow makes the Browns better. Joe Burrow needed Jamar Chase before he became anything, right? Like, that wasn't me that said that. You guys said Joe Burrow had his entire leg snapped in a million freaking different pieces. And instead of Joe Burrow saying, man, I think I should get an offensive line, he goes, give me a wide receiver, because I can't play football without my wide receiver. Well, you can't walk without an offensive line, but he chose a wide receiver. And he looks really, really good because of that wide receiver, but I think that's more Jamar Chase than that is Joe Burrow. Look at the yards after the catch. That's all Jamar Chase. Look at a few of those big-ass catches that he's made down the field. A lot of those, like I remember the one, was it against the Lions, that everyone thought it was an interception or incomplete. Like, we thought it hit the forearm of the quarterback, and somehow it ricocheted off the arm, and Jamar Chase pulls it in and catches it and runs it all the way in. Like, that's all Jamar. The majority of the success of the offense is Jamar Chase. I said that earlier in the week. The two most dominant players in the NFL this season has been Jamar Chase, who, if you want me to admit I was wrong about, I'm not willing to admit that I was wrong about my stance on the Bengals should have focused on offensive line, but holy crap, the kid is 1,000,000% better than I think even you guys envisioned. I think Bengals fans thought he was going to be a good addition to the offense, but the dude is beyond even that. So fine there. Yes, he is magnificent, but I think he has been as dominant in his team's success as Derrick Henry for the Titans. I said that earlier in the week. I think that Jamar Chase is more important to the Bengals offense than Nick Chubb is to the Browns offense. Yes, I said that too. See, I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad of a guy. I'm complimenting the Bengals where compliments are due, but I'm not willing to go there yet as far as that's concerned. Where are we at here? I know there was one. Somebody called out the issue with Baker Mayfield, something about the one game that he had that he threw for 150 yards against the Vikings earlier in the season. And here it is. There it is. So Philip Reed on Facebook says, didn't Mayfield pass for 45% and 155 yards against the Vikings? Yes, he did. It's the worst game he's ever had as a pro. Has he ever repeated that performance? No, he didn't. In fact, he countered that performance with 2 touchdowns, 300 yards, and 0 interceptions against the Chargers. There's been way more of those games than the 150. In fact, that's the only game he's ever had like that. He's not a bad quarterback. He had a bad day. And in fact, if we could be consistent here, I've seen way more average to below average Joe Burrow games than the game we just saw against the Ravens this past week. And I'm playing by your guys' rules. I've been nice long enough, but you guys want to keep attacking Baker Mayfield, I could play this game all day because Baker Mayfield had one horrible game, 45% completion percentage, 155 yards, and everyone was just bashing him, and I bashed him too. I said, that's unacceptable. How will you respond? And he responded with two really good games after that from an individual standpoint. Of course, injured, beat up, no one around him. I get all that. But no, that's not who he is. And until I see more of what we saw from Joe Burrow this past Sunday, I'm not convinced that that's who he is either. We could play it on both sides. Would you look at that? Look at the time. Folks, just so you guys know, I'm in the studio by myself today. So if you're calling and not getting through, I apologize. If you are calling and all of a sudden you hear the station playing in the background on your phone, that means I have placed you on hold. I just don't know who the hell you are yet. So when I go to this commercial break, I see 4 of you on hold right now. I'm going to get to you guys right away to get your name and spot in line, and we'll hear what you have to say. But keep the comments coming in on the Facebook feed. We'll definitely get to that on the other side. 518-1410, that's the number to call in. Adam Collett on Facebook says, Mr. Kinner. I like that. It's like a teacher. And I am educating you guys a lot today, by the way. Mr. Kinner, I love you to death. Huh? But what are you going to say when the Bengals beat the brakes off the Browns with Baker? You're digging a hole, sir. Love the show. Man, there's a lot of niceness and a lot of not so niceness in there. I don't even know how to respond to that, Adam. I'm confident, though. I'm very confident. Very, very confident. You guys are still figuring your team out. I know who my team is when healthy, and when healthy, they're better than the Bengals. Bengals are very good right now. They're better than I had anticipated. Well, let's see some consistency first, but I can't take nothing away from what they just did against the Ravens. But don't worry, I'm confident. I'm confident. You bring up a good point. Now, I might be digging a hole, but it ain't going to be me in there. We'll be back. 518-1410.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. WING 1410 Dayton.
Knock, knock. Trick or treat. Happy Halloween.
Dayton's ESPN Radio.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish
is pretty bad.
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind. Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
No matter your learning style or experience level, Babbel has lessons designed for you that will get you speaking quickly and confidently.
I tried learning Spanish before, but I couldn't stick with it until I found Babbel.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said now we speak Spanish.
I can't wait to use our new language skills on our upcoming adventures.
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Hey, Buckeye fans, as the official wing sponsor of your Ohio State Buckeyes, Roosters is giving away 12 trips for 2 to this year's Buckeye Bowl game. Each trip comes complete with airfare, hotel, gift bag, and 2 tickets to the big game. One bowl prize winner chosen each week, along with other cool Roosters weekly prizes. So register every week at roosterswings.com. Roosters, a fun, casual joint, and the official wing sponsor of Ohio State Athletics. Official contest rules at roosterswings.com.
KTH Parts Industries in St. Paris, Ohio has immediate openings for second and third shift production associates. KTH promotes from within, offers medical, dental, 401k, attendance bonus, and a competitive wage, starting at just over $19 per hour with annual increases. KTH will be hosting walk-in interviews Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. through 3 p.m. Please bring a resume and photo ID. Visit kth.net for more information. KTH is an equal opportunity employer.
Hi, this is Eddie Sorrell, Body Shop Manager at Germain Honda of Beaver Creek. When you need a dependable body shop, we're here to help, repairing all makes and models. Our technicians have over 125 years experience. That means we can repair your vehicle quickly and efficiently. Our department is state-of-the-art with new equipment to get you back on the road quickly. We offer loaner cars during service and free estimates. Germain Honda of Beaver Creek, Route 35, just east of 675 between Xenia and Beaver Creek.
O'Reilly. When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Some people think fall is the best time of the year. It may also be a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
Don't miss the ESPN Dayton Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week every Friday night, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and Justin Kinner will have the call all season long. Check out wingam.com for the complete schedule and to stream the games live. All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, welcome back. I'm Justin Kinner with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz will hang out with us coming up here. Couldn't get him on the show yesterday. He will join us. So we introduced the hater mic, I think last week or whatever it was, and I probably overuse it. Of course, some of the critics out there, there's lots of them. I think I have more critics than fans, and that should tell me something. But you know what? I said, hey, if my career's sinking, I'm going to pull all y'all down with me. How about that? But I think I have Jeff on hold. Jeff, I'll get to your call coming up here in just a second, so give me a second. But I bring out the hater mic because sometimes you guys say some crazy things. And my absolute favorite one is from Sean Boland, who says, he's not nice, talking about me. Apparently, I'm not nice. He's not nice, says Sean Boland on Facebook. His feelings are hurt. Because of what? Because I've said that the last two, he's mad because I've been too critical of the Bengals. There's a team that's won 6 games the last 2 years. I told y'all when they became good, I'd start saying nice things about them. I've said a lot of nice things about them this week. It makes me nauseous, but that's where I'm at. I call it down the middle. I call it exactly how I see it. When you're good, you're good. When you're bad, you're bad. It's really not that hard to figure out. It's really not that hard to figure out. Adam goes on to say, we catch crap all the time from you guys. We're just joking with them. Oh, is there a fight in the chat section about me? Aw, do I have people defending me? This is pretty cool. I've never had anyone defend me. My own parents never defended me growing up. Every time I'd get in trouble at school, it was like, what the hell do you do now? It was never like, oh, let me defend it. I see all you parents out there. Your kids could burn down a school, and half you parents would go over there and be like, well, it wasn't his fault. My parents, I'd get stuffed in a trash can, and they'd probably, well, what'd you say to get shoved in the trash can? So to have people defend me like this is pretty nice. So I appreciate y'all, even if Adam is saying mean things. Matt on YouTube or on Facebook, he has a Bengals logo in his Facebook profile picture, but I like what he has to say. He goes, I'm a huge Bengals fan. I would say that you have to start Baker Mayfield. I thought he was the best quarterback coming out when he did. He is Cleveland. I agree 1,000,000%. I think that Baker Mayfield makes sense for Cleveland because he is as much Cleveland as Joe Burrow is Cincinnati. There's just something about them that it's just a perfect fit. They look the part. Like Baker looks good as a Cleveland Brown. Joe Burrow looks good as a Cincinnati Bengal. It just works. We don't, I really do think that the best thing for Baker Mayfield is the fact that he plays in an offense that has Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. But that's also the worst thing for Baker Mayfield because you have two of the most dominant running backs in the NFL in your offense. And people are questioning why you guys don't throw more. Well, what do you think Baker's numbers would look like if they didn't have a run game or as good of a run game? The offense would open up more because you would have to start, passing more because your run game's not as good. But if it's not broke, don't fix it. The run game's not broke. So don't try to fix it. Don't try to overfix it. Like, let the offense open up. And they've done that. When the run game's not there, they have opened it up. Do you remember those couple games last year, especially against the Ravens, when literally it was Baker and Lamar going punch for punch? I mean, literally. And you want to talk about, the Browns almost, losing to the Ravens in that matchup. That's because of how bad the defense was. Cleveland's defense was horrible last year. And I thought they spent money to get better. I'm not 100% sure that they are better this year. Not with the way I've seen teams and receivers dice them up. I'm not going to lie to you. Although I'm confident that the Browns could beat the Bengals coming up here in 2 weeks, I'm not confident that the defense is going to stop Jamar Chase. I mean, Jamar Chase has been doing to teams what teams have been doing to the Browns all season, and that's just kicking their ass, in the secondary. I'm worried about that matchup. I'm not really worried about anything else. I do think I need to put a little bit more respect on Joe Mixon's name as well, because Joe Mixon, taking advantage of the opportunities that he has had right now, thanks to Zeke Elliott's injury and Nick Chubb's, he's third in rushing. And no, that's not a shot at him, because even if those other two weren't hurt, Joe Mixon would still be top 5. We talk so much about Jamar Chase and all the other weapons that they have on that offense. We forget about, Mixon at times. Mixon looks he looks more like the Mixon we saw the last time Pollack was here. I'm still not sold on that offensive line. I do know this, it's better than last year. But again, it's better than last year, but that's a low bar. That's like if I grow an inch tonight and come into work tomorrow and say I'm taller, I can't say I'm tall. Sure, am I taller than I was yesterday? Yeah, but am I tall? No. Are you better than you were last year? Yeah. Are you good? No. But they've got the job done. They've got the job done, and that's all you can ask for. And was I wrong about I will say this, though. The offensive line is better than I thought they would be, but it's still not as good as what they were trying to convince us they would be to justify not attacking the offensive line in the draft and in free agency. But the limited and bad moves that they did make are panning out for the short term. Remember, there's still 10 games left. We're sitting here with 10 games left in the season, and you're using 7 games to try to shut everybody up. I get it. It's fun. Trust me, as a Browns fan, all I did for years was hear how many networks just bash the Browns. Same old Browns. Browns this, Browns that. Browns are horrible. Blah, 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 blah. I get it. It's frustrating. But remember when the Browns started winning, consistently last year, and Browns fans started getting excited, all of you guys kept telling us to shut up. You haven't won anything yet. You didn't do anything. You didn't accomplish anything. But this year, you haven't accomplished anything either. But you're in first place right now, which is impressive. But it's just the hypocrisy in fans. It cracks me up. The hatred you have for other fan bases. You get mad at other fan bases when franchises very similar to yours in the way that they're perceived from being a joke. When those franchises start having success, what do? You try to tear them down. The Dolphins, when everyone was talking about how bad the Bengals franchise was, what did you guys do? Well, the Dolphins are just as bad. So then you start saying weird things like, yeah, well, we may suck, but they suck too. It's the weirdest thing that we fan bases of bad teams or traditionally bad teams do and say all the time. It makes us say some embarrassing things. When our feelings get hurt, if we feel bad, we're going to make sure everyone around us feels bad too. Oh yeah, well, you guys are bad too. I heard it all the time last year. But that's where it's at right now. So excuse me if sometimes I sit back and smirk at you guys a little bit, because the hypocrisy, it's all over you. It's all over you as far as I'm concerned. But Matt, I agree. Baker Mayfield needs to start. This conversation started because of Dominique Foxworth when it was talking about how 60% of Baker Mayfield is not as good as 100% of Case Keenum. And, maybe 2 weeks ago, I might have believed that until I actually saw Case Keenum play this past Thursday. And look at the last full season that Case Keenum played. The dude wasn't good. He threw 18 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. He completed 61% of his passes. He won 6 games his last full year as a starter in the league. And you guys are trying to tell me that guy from 3 years ago is better than 60% of Baker Mayfield, who's been playing 60% pretty much the whole entire season. And his numbers are actually right now he's trending towards having a career high in pass yards, having a career high in completion percentage. The dude's doing it all. Touchdowns are down. Yes, as I said earlier, for the new audience that has just tuned in, that's an offense that also has 13 more rushing touchdowns than the Browns did a year ago at this time. So he's not he's not stopping the offense. The offense continues to move the ball. Oh, it's the run game. Okay. Does it matter how the touchdowns are scored? Does it matter how they're scored? No, it does not. As long as points are going up on the board, and the Browns right now are averaging a ton of points a game. Of course, this past Thursday night didn't help their points per game average, seeing as your quarterback threw for 199 yards and only put up 17 points on the board. But yes, let's continue to talk about how the Browns are better off with Case Keenum than Baker Mayfield. If Baker Mayfield is healthy enough to play, play. If he's not healthy enough to play, then shut him down for the year. But I don't even look, and I'll defend Case Keenum on this. It's very difficult for Case Keenum to understand his role with this team because he's stepping in thinking, okay, is this going to be my one and only start? Am I going to start this week, not start against the Steelers, have to come in at halftime? And then Baker heals up a little bit. Then he starts against the Bengals, and then we got to start this process over again. Or should the Browns just say, you know what, screw this. We can't keep starting Baker, resting him, shut him down for the year, get that surgery done now, get him healed up before next season, and let Keenum, rush to the finish line, run to the finish line with Keenum. But I do believe that this coming up Sunday, as long as Baker is healthy enough to play. I don't think this past Thursday resting him did anything because every report out there has indicated that this is not an injury that will heal without surgery. So if he's playing and practicing, that means he's healthy enough to play. And if he can't play, then shut him down. It's that simple. Back to the Facebook feed we go. Matt Sturgeon said, my honest 2 cents, Browns have turned the franchise around and the Bengals are on the verge of turning it around, hopefully after this year. Anyone but the Steelers. Well, I'll only disagree with you from the standpoint of I do not think that the Browns have turned the franchise around. I think that consistency is key. If you have one really, really good game, it doesn't mean that that's who you are. If you have one really, really bad game, that doesn't mean that that's who you are. You have one really good season. That doesn't even mean that that's who you are. I mean, look at how bad the Dolphins are right now. Dolphins are the same exact team as last year. They're worse. You would think that another year of experience for all of those players on the Dolphins would help, and it didn't. They're worse, and you're supposed to get better with another full year of experience. They're worse. So the Dolphins' good year last year, even though they didn't make the playoffs, they still won 10 games. You win 10 games. I don't care if you make the playoffs or not. That's tough to do in the National Football League. They're worse. So one good win doesn't make you a good team. One good season doesn't make you a good team. One bad game doesn't make you a bad team or a bad player. One bad season doesn't make you a bad team. But the Browns have been more consistently crappy than good. The Bengals have been more consistently crappy than good. So I don't trust the Browns front office to handle this situation correctly. And to be honest with you, I think they've already messed it up. The reason you're getting so many different answers from different people regards to whether Baker will play or not is because no one's on the same page, because no one knows what the hell's going on. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Charles Mitchell on Facebook says, if you sit him until the bye, will he get healthy? If so, sit him. Your team is good enough to stay in the hunt until then. Well, Charles, I hate to say this, but they have 2 tough games coming up. You'll love what I have to say here. The Steelers, you need Baker Mayfield to beat the Steelers. You're not beating the Steelers without Baker Mayfield this Sunday. Could they still lose with Baker Mayfield? Yes. They've lost games with him before. They'll lose games with him moving forward, but he still gives them the best chance to win football games. And he gives them the best chance to beat the Steelers. They've beat the Steelers in back-to-back games. They would love to make it 3 straight. The best chance of that is that. And then the damn Bengals. The damn Cincinnati Bengals. That defense scares the hell out of me. And if you think that I want Case Keenum going up against that defense, nope, I do not. The last time Keenum was a full-time starter in the NFL, he threw 18 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. He completed 61% of his passes. All of those are worse than Baker Mayfield. That was 3 years ago. You want that guy going up against that Bengals defense? I don't, Browns fans. I do not. Whatever the closeness is talent-wise that you guys think exists between Baker and Keenum, that's your own fantasy land. That's fine. That's not the case, though. Baker Mayfield is significantly better than Case Keenum, and the best chance the Browns have at winning is with Baker Mayfield. Like him or love him. Let's go to Jeff. Jeff, how are you? We do not have Jeff anymore, but 518-1410. Charles Mitchell says, plan on going 0-2 the next 2 weeks regardless. That still doesn't knock you out of the playoffs. Charles, you see what I mean, Bengals fans, is what I get. Try to be nice. Compliment the Bengals defense. Doug Toby says, Baker will tell them when he can play. That's the problem. When you allow the players to decide everything, that's the problem. That's why I give the Seahawks credit for not letting Russell Wilson get to decide what draft picks they make. And sure, am I defending the front office for the Seahawks and saying that they actually make the right moves? No, they do not. But just because the front office doesn't make the right moves doesn't mean that automatically qualifies the players to run the team. That's why Aaron Rodgers, he didn't get his way. I keep hearing people on these shows say, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers won." How did he win? He didn't get power within the organization. The Packers called his bluff. They didn't trade him. They gave him Randall Cobb. By the way, they got him Randall Cobb. They didn't go get him they didn't give up the farm to go get an OBJ or to go get a Hopkins or to go get someone like that. They get Cobb. Who cares? Who cares? Aaron Rodgers didn't win that. Aaron Rodgers, they called his bluff, and he tried to make it feel like he tried to, control the narrative as if he decided to come back because he wanted to come back. No, you wanted to come back, and you came back because you had to, because your only other option was to sit out. Deshaun Watson, the same thing. Now, I know he's facing 22 counts of sexual assault and all that fun stuff, but I didn't mean to say fun stuff, but you know what I mean. He has 22 accounts, sexual assault allegations against him. So that's the headline now. But before that, he wanted he was throwing the same temper tantrum that Aaron Rodgers was. He was throwing the same temper tantrum that Russell Wilson was. They are players. They are employees of the organization, and yet they want to decide what the teams do. But you know what? You can make more of an argument for Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson making decisions for their teams. Baker Mayfield, as much as I've argued how good he is, he ain't good enough to make decisions for his organization. That's for sure. And he shouldn't be making decisions on his shoulder in regards to not just this upcoming week, but this upcoming season, the rest of his career. That's the problem I have with that. But 518-1410, we'll take your calls in a second as soon as I can get back to it. But Philip Reed on Facebook says 32 years in January since the Bengals have won a playoff game. They do have that record going. Maybe they can change that this year, but there were several years they could have changed that, and they didn't. That's my point. There's a couple years that with all the top draft picks that the Browns have had, there's a couple years that they could have hit on those and changed their fortunes, but they didn't. So that's my point. They didn't. So there's that. Ron Howard says Brady played the whole season hurt last year. Well, Ron, Baker Mayfield's not Tom Brady. Joe Burrow's not Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers isn't even Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers is really, really good, but the dude hasn't been to a Super Bowl in over a decade. So, again, using Tom Brady as an example in anything, Ron, is kind of foolish because nobody lives up to who Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time. Anyone out there that thinks otherwise, I don't know what to tell you, but I don't know how you could watch what Tom Brady's doing at his age, this long into his career, 20 plus years. It's the best quarterback of all time. And you're trying to say, well, how come Baker Mayfield can't play her? Tom Brady played her. And by the way, Ron, Baker Mayfield has been playing hurt. The dude, 50 games into his career, he finally missed his first game. Okay, calls are coming in. Let's try this again, shall we? Call during this break so I can get you guys on hold. This is the most small market radio sounding thing ever. I don't even give a rip today. 518-1410. Give me a call so I can get you on hold, and we'll get to your points on the other side. We do have ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz, who'll hang out with us coming up at 5:15. We'll talk all things college football and the playoffs coming up around the corner. I'll be back in just a moment.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy, a high near 54. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, a low near 48. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers, a high near 63. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Call William Brockman & Sons Heating and Air Conditioning at 937-222-8638 for reliable Lennox products that can make the air in your home absolutely perfect. Ohio license number 14911.
Let's be real. Mopping is a hassle. You have to fill the bucket, pushing a wet, heavy mop around, then cleaning the mop when you're done so it doesn't grow bacteria. A hassle on top of a hassle. Try Swiffer Wet Jet. With Swiffer Wet Jet, you start with a fresh pad and cleaning solution every time. And when you're done, you just toss the pad. Swiffer Wet Jet, the faster, easier, cleaner way to clean your floors.
The Montgomery County Clerk of Courts Help Center brings the courthouse to the community with its weekly outreach programs to local churches, libraries, and community centers. We help you navigate the legal system. Find a location near you at courthouse2u.com. Brought to you by Montgomery County Clerk of Courts Mike Foley. Hey, here to tell you about my friends at Odell Transportation. They're now hiring Class A CDL drivers and offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, a $5,000 sign-on bonus, home daily, dedicated lanes, and no-touch freight. Brand new equipment as well, medical, dental, vision, and company-paid life insurance. Call Cody right now. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
There's confusion about how to protect yourself from COVID. One thing is certain. Whether or not you're vaccinated, you need an accurate thermometer to check for fever, the leading sign of flu and COVID. Be vigilant and contact your medical provider at the first sign of fever. Don't rely on non-contact thermometers that have no scientific studies. Only the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer has been proven accurate in more than 100 clinical studies. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Research shows that people remember radio ads with a booming voice that emphasizes all the main points. So to help you remember that Liberty Mutual Insurance Company customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
That part is super important.
Here's one with a booming voice.
I'm emphasizing everything.
Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance.
Like a page with every word highlighted.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Some people think fall is the best time of the year. It may also be a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
You want more local content from Dayton's ESPN radio station 1410 Wing AM? Make sure you subscribe to the WING 1410 Dayton YouTube channel, where you can watch all your local shows live or go back and rewatch previous episodes of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, the Keith Byers Show, Talking Out Loud with Sully, and more. College football playoffs, Browns, Bengals, Buckeyes, and more. Catch the Keith Byers Show Mondays at noon on 1410 ESPN Radio.
518-1410, 518-1410. The call situation has been a disaster today as I try to balance, being the producer and the host at the same time. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm giving it my best. It's like Kinner playing at 60% today. It's still better than the most hosts at 100%, right? Yeah, I doubt that. All right, but I appreciate you're here hanging out with me, though. It's a little lonely in here. No Kev today. I'm just kind of talking into this camera right now, and I'm assuming there's people on the other side listening, and I'm assuming there's other people on the other side of this mic listening as well. So I appreciate you hanging out with me today. 518-1410. Doug Toby on Facebook says, yes, you have praised the Bengals this week, but sometimes it's a little sarcastic. Yes, of course it's sarcastic. Yes, there's a lot to praise. Yes, you guys are completely overreacting to one game, but not telling you can't be excited about it. But yes, there's a little sarcasm there. But again, there's not a whole lot to be negative about. What am I going to rip the Bengals for? Their offense? Offense is clicking right now. Defense, one of the best in the league. The team as a whole, they're in first place. You got to stop being so damn sensitive, folks. At the end of the day, it's a first-place Bengals team. And even if I am ripping your team, who cares? They're in first place. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are the talk of the NFL. The defense is one of the best in the NFL. What do you care? What do you care? I'm not saying anything bad about the team. If I'm sarcastic about everything. I'm the most socially awkward person you'll ever meet in real life. You think I'm annoying on the air? You should meet me in real life. I have no clue how to have a conversation with people. I'm just socially weird. Like, I'm sarcastic about everything. That's my response to everything. No, you should see me. It doesn't matter. The worst time, no matter what's going on, no matter how awkward the situation is, I make it worse. I make jokes at the most inopportune time. It is what it is. Just get over it. Get over it. You guys will be fine. Jake Mellon says, didn't Joe Burrow throw a game-losing interception in overtime? If that same scenario played out for Baker Mayfield, yes, Jake, that's a game-losing interception. For Joe Burrow, he was so good and confident that he wanted to challenge himself by giving the ball to the other team so that he can try to come back and win. It's different. Come on, Jake, you know that. You're better than that. Mark Bundy Jr., I like that last name, by the way. Mark Bundy Jr. on Facebook says, "Hey, Justin, I love Ohio sports, but the Bengals are my first love. I got so sick of the Bengals being the Bungles that I started rooting for the Browns a little just to enjoy an Ohio football team win. I love how my Bengals are playing, but I've been let down so many times in 40-plus years that I am cautiously optimistic. I was a junior in high school the last time that they won a playoff games. Last time they won a playoff game, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals, one of 5 teams that have the longest playoff droughts in the National Football League." Theo Mims on Facebook says the Browns will sit Baker and Keenum will guide the Browns to the Super Bowl and win it. Oh, that's just foolish, Mr. Theo. Come on now. We got Steve on hold. Steve, welcome in, sir. How are you? Steve, you there? Caller, what's up? Who is this?
This is Rob.
Rob, how are you? Welcome in, man.
Hey, man, what's going on?
Another day in paradise.
Hey, I was listening to you. I listen to you all the time.
Sorry.
Here's your show. But you're talking about the running back and stuff. Well, I think that's more a testament to the offensive line of the Browns than it is to the running backs. You know what I mean? Because you can have the best running back in the world. If he ain't got someone blocking for him, he ain't going no place. So,
oh no, I mean, look, the offensive line is the whole. I mean, if this offensive line is not good, the offense isn't good. That's just the bottom line. But yes, with the offensive line being as good as it is, that's what allows Baker to be as good as he is, and the run game to be as good as they are. But I do know that the offensive line allows Baker to be his best, and the run game to be their best. But the running game is the best of the best in the National Football League, so you have to go with what works.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you got to keep pounding the football. I mean. I wish the Bengals would do it a little bit more, but they don't.
I mean, look, to be honest, I think that the Bengals offense is actually, right now, just because they're healthier, it's more well-balanced than the Browns and most teams in the NFL. I mean, you look at Joe Mixon, he's quietly third place, right now. He's the third leading rusher in the National Football League. So I think that, he's quietly doing that. And I think the run game for the Bengals has been pretty solid. I don't think we can knock that at all. I just don't think it's as flashy as Derrick Henry and the Titans and, as flashy as Nick Chubb and the Browns. But he's quietly sitting with the third most rushing yards in the NFL. It's pretty impressive.
You bring up Derrick Henry, and I remember watching him in Alabama, and I couldn't understand why Nick Saban didn't use him more than he did. I mean, the guy's a beast. He's a beast, man.
It just doesn't look right. You see him standing next to defenders, and you're like, usually the defenders are the bigger, stronger, faster guys, and that's not the case. I mean, Derrick Henry could play any position out there outside of quarterback probably and be very efficient at it. I mean, he's so strong, big, so athletic. He played
quarterback last week, didn't he?
Actually, yes, he did. You're right.
All right, man. I want to give a shout out, and I'm a Browns fan and a Bengals fan, except when the Browns play the Bengals. So, but I think, the testament to the running game for the Browns is the offensive line. I mean, they're just stout, so.
Absolutely. But hey, good hearing from you. Take care, Rob.
All right, you too.
518-1410. All right, let's move on now to the Bengals and the Jets this coming up weekend. We're getting to some college football stuff coming up. The Cincinnati Bengals, they were a 9.5-point favorite to start the week. Now a 10.5-point favorite on the road at the Jets. The Jets had to trade. As the show ended yesterday, they traded for Joe Flacco. But look, this really isn't about who the Bengals are playing. I actually think if you guys want to ask me right now, who has the tougher opponent this weekend, the Browns or the Bengals? Obviously, you're going to say the Browns, but I actually think the Bengals have a pretty tough opponent this coming up Sunday, and that is themselves. We talk about this all the time. This isn't me knocking the Bengals or anything. I'm very confident, by the way, that the Bengals are going to beat the Jets. In fact, to prove it, I am in a knockout league. Keith Byers hosts this knockout league throughout the NFL season, and the Bengals are my team this week. So I'm very confident that and I'm one of the final couple people. There's a lot of money on the line for this, by the way. So I'm just saying, I'm putting a lot of faith in the Bengals this weekend. So this isn't me hating on the Bengals. So just listen up. But I think that the Bengals, their biggest opponent this Sunday is not the Jets. It's themselves. Who are the Cincinnati Bengals? How are they going to respond to that big win against Baltimore? I am not going to go as far as, this could potentially, this is the makings of a trap game, but apparently when you use phrases like that, it irritates people. I have no clue why. The last time I called the Lions a trap game, the game ahead of the Ravens, you guys lost your mind. And really, that really was a trap game. Just because the Bengals won that game doesn't mean it wasn't a trap game. technically, the reason you won't allow me to call the Jets a trap game is because for that to be a trap game, you would have to acknowledge that Cleveland is a game you have circled as a big one. You guys hate to give the Browns compliments. You don't want to admit that is a humongous game coming up a week from Sunday. And because of that, you won't allow me to call the Jets a trap game. But this is ultimately a trap game. It's a game that you should win, that you should dominate. And if you overlook this opponent and start looking ahead to a week from Sunday, they could be in trouble. Now, again, you go and you blow out the Jets. And you'll say, see, they don't respect the Browns. They weren't worried about the Browns. That's why they took care of business. You win a trap game. This is a trap game. But I'm not disrespecting the Bengals. The Bengals' biggest opponent on Sunday is not the Jets, it's themselves. How do you handle success? The Browns did not handle success properly whenever they won a lot of games in Baker's rookie year. They thought it would be, they added OBJ. They thought it would just be easy, just throw the ball out there and off you go. That clearly was not the case. Now, they had a lot of factors that worked against them. Not just that. I mean, how do you handle success? How is Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, who have to be the two most confident players in the NFL right now? I mean, those two, that tandem right there is unbelievable. As far as when you look at, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and you look at some of the top wide receiver quarterback combos in the NFL, no wide receiver quarterback combo has more confidence and is playing as well right now than Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase as far as how they play together. But they're young. At any moment, and you guys know this, and even if they do play poorly against the Jets, I will not crack the mic and say that that's who they are. Everyone has a bad game. The Bengals haven't had one yet. You can maybe make the argument that the Jaguars was their bad game, and they still were able to escape with a win, which is pretty impressive. That was an impressive win considering the hole they dug themselves in early in the game. Same thing with the Lions. Although you were up 10-0 on the Lions, you have to admit that was such an ugly first half, but by skill alone and talent alone, you were up 10-0 at the half. The Jets are another one of those Jaguars teams. The Jets are another one of those Lions teams that it's really not the Bengals versus the Jags or the Bengals versus the Lions or even the Bengals versus the Jets. It really comes down to the Bengals versus the Bengals. Bengals versus expectations, not just the expectations set on the Bengals from the outside, but the expectations that the Bengals have set for themselves on the inside. How do they handle that? Are the Bengals a year ahead of schedule? When you start winning ahead of schedule, it does alter plans for players. It alters how coaches use players. It alters how coaches call games. Coaches start to get a little bit more aggressive. They start to do things that is out of character. They start to do things that they weren't doing to help them start the season successful. And they start, maybe adding some wrinkles. They start getting a little overconfident. The players start getting a little overconfident in themselves. Maybe they don't take practices serious that week because they're so confident in themselves, they take their foot off the gas a little bit. Folks, I'm not accusing the Bengals of that, but that is a realistic thing that could potentially happen because it happens to a lot of teams in the NFL. It happens to a lot of teams in baseball. It happens to a lot of teams in basketball. When you start rolling and things become a little easier, how do you balance when the game becomes a little easier and still practicing as if you are preparing for the hard road ahead? I don't think the Bengals are that type of team right now. As I praised them yesterday, I said they're one of the most disciplined teams. I think they have the third least penalties in the NFL. They don't beat themselves. Joe Burrow turns the ball over way more than I would like and way more than you should like. But outside of the quarterback throwing that many interceptions, they don't beat themselves. Running backs don't fumble. Receivers don't drop passes. Receivers don't fumble the ball. You know what I mean? Like they don't turn it over outside of Joe Burrow. Not a shot. That's the reality. He turns it over a lot. You clean that up, and they're probably the least penalized, and they don't turn the ball over. They're the most disciplined team in football, which that sounds weird. Because even with the Bengals were at their peak, and not peak as in, the best of all time, but even when they were in the middle of that 5 straight playoff run back in the early 2010s, they were not known for that at all. You tuned in every week to find out, okay, Vontaze Burfict gets suspended. Who's he going to hit this week that's going to get him suspended? Penalties, the taunting, everything. That was who the Bengals were. But all of that came with the skill set. They won a lot of games because of that talent, and that talent fed off of that cockiness and that energy. This team's built different. This team's just confident. They're not cocky. There is a difference, and I give them credit for that. So they seem to be a much more mentally tough team than most in the NFL. Definitely more mentally tough than the Cleveland Browns. They are more mentally tough than the Cleveland Browns. The way that the Bengals lost that game against the Steelers years and years ago, the last time they were in the playoffs, That doesn't happen with this team, at least the way things seem to be going 7 games into the season. I will give them that. But their biggest opponent this weekend is not the Jets, it's themselves. How do they handle the expectations? Because you guys asked for it. You wanted all eyes on the Bengals. You wanted the respect. You wanted the praise. You wanted all of the attention on the Cincinnati Bengals. The players wanted it too. But what happens when you get it? You guys, I've been watching you on social media. You guys have been in awe. It's like a kid on Christmas morning all week. You woke up, you walked down the stairs, you rubbed your eyes, you looked down at the pretty tree, all the lights and everything, and you looked underneath, and there it was, all your presents. You came downstairs, you woke up early in the morning, you rubbed your eyes, you turned on the TV, and there it is. Keyshawn J. Will and Max. You look at, Skip Bayless, and you look at Shannon Sharp, and you look at Colin Cowherd, and, you look at Stephen A. Smith, and you look at all the hosts across the board on all these national platforms, and they're all drooling over Joe Burrow. Stephen A. Smith went as far as to say as he would take Joe Burrow over Lamar Jackson, which, by the way, I don't think that that's crazy of a take on his part, but you guys lost your minds. You guys wet your pants with excitement. I'm not mocking that either. I'm telling you, like, every show has just been drooling over the Cincinnati Bengals. You got it. You got what you wanted. The Bengals and the players got what they wanted. But now everything has changed. This isn't about a cute little up-and-coming story anymore. You've arrived, right? You want us to believe you've arrived. Well, with arriving comes a whole set of different expectations. Because most pundits believe that the Bengals could win anywhere between, 5 at the least and, maybe 8 to 9 at the most. And that's a good year, 9 and 8 or whatever they would be to finish with 9 wins. That was a step in the right direction. But now you've won 5 of your first 7 games. You're most likely going to win 6 of your first 8. And as we talked about yesterday, let's say, by winning 6 of your first 8 and you look at your final 9 games, let's say you go 4-5 the rest of the way. That's not great football, but hell, you still finish with 10 wins. So what I mean by all of this is this. The expectations were middle of the road to below. You've surpassed that already. The team has surpassed that. And it's easy when you have limited expectations to live up to that. The Browns were playing with house money the first 2 years when they had Baker Mayfield, because you went from 0-16 to expecting to win a little bit more, to expecting to win a little bit more. And then last year, when they were expected to win, it was the reality. It was like, oh, man, it kind of smacked them in the face a little bit. It's like, man, we have to play. Or 2 years ago, they had to play perfect football. And they weren't playing perfect football. And it's like the expectations got to them. They believed the hype. They believed the expectations. They believed that by getting OBJ, they were just instantly going to be great. Didn't work. But the difference is the Browns were expected to be great from the second the season kicked off. The Bengals were not expected to be great from the time the season kicked off. They gradually had to start making people believers, and they're finally at that point. And how will they respond? Because they hadn't arrived yet heading into the matchup with the Ravens. Everyone kept circling that match. It started with the Packers. All right, let's see how they perform with the Packers, okay? Let's see how they look against the Packers. Can they look the part against the Packers? They looked the part against the Packers. They should have won. Your quarterback threw an interception in overtime at home. If he doesn't throw that interception and the kicker can make a field goal, we're talking about a one-loss Bengals team that would have had the respect a lot sooner. But they didn't just beat the Ravens. They beat the tires off the Ravens and made everyone believers. So this is different. Folks, don't get mad at me. The Jets coming up, it's not about who you play. It's about who you are. And who you are is a team with expectations now. You went into the game with the Ravens hoping to prove everybody wrong. And you know what? If you would have lost, you were supposed to lose, right? If the Bengals would have lost to the Ravens, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to beat the Ravens. You're the Bengals. All right, you're the Bengals. Just because in your head, this song's playing all day long in all your Bengal fans' heads, all day long. You're just, snapping your fingers and you're just tapping your knee. You're just having a good old time. That's you. No one else believed that. And if you would have lost, you were supposed to lose, and you're the same old Bengals and blah, blah, blah. But you didn't just beat them. You destroyed them. Now you're being looked at different. And if you're being looked at different and you're acknowledging that you're being looked at different, you're now feeling different. You're now preparing different. And you're preparing confidently, but we all know that pressure can crack you sometimes. Will the pressure crack the Bengals? We've seen crazier things happen this year. I don't think it's that crazy to think that if the Bengals aren't mentally prepared and don't know how to handle success, that they could be vulnerable against a team like the Jets, who we do know that even if the Jets beat the Bengals this Sunday, I don't believe for 1 second that the Jets are better than the Bengals. But if the Jets beat the Bengals on Sunday, the Bengals wouldn't be losing to the Jets. The Bengals would have beat themselves on Sunday. That's the only way the Jets have a chance of winning on Sunday, is if the Bengals start committing penalties, they start jumping off sides, false start, turning the ball over, they start believing the hype, they start not preparing. I mean, right now, who knows what practice is like right now? All of that, the discipline stuff that's been there for the whole time, are they practicing hard still? Have they taken their foot off the gas a little? Are they overlooking the Jets because they're looking at the Browns, and then come Sunday, all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, the Jets are playing hard. Folks, I'm not hating here. If any other host was saying this, you would be kind of buying in a little bit and nodding your head saying, yeah, I could see why that could be a concern. But because it's me, it's pissing you off, and I get that. I don't believe, I told you, I have money. The Bengals are winning on Sunday. I believe that they are. They better. I need to continue to stay in this pool to win some money, okay? I need that to happen. But I also know that it's very foolish to sit here and think that the Bengals could just roll it out there and just roll over the Jets. The Bengals have not proven that they are good enough to consistently win at a high level. They have to continue winning. You beat the Ravens. Cool. You get to celebrate that for a day. And we did. We celebrated a lot. We celebrated a ton on Monday. But the celebration's over. And now it's on to preparing for the Jets. And I tell you what, I promise you, this will not be playing on Monday if the Bengals overlook the Jets. Bengals fans agree, disagree. Where are we at with that? Again, I haven't even checked the comment section because I'm a little nervous to see how some of y'all are going to respond to this. But I'm curious. What do you guys think about that? Like, you got to perform. You got to go out there and live up to those expectations. Like, and that's the thing. If you think that it's the same thing, if you think that the way the critics are watching your team this week is the same as in weeks past, you're wrong. Because you're going to start to notice some of the love is going to disappear a little bit in the coming weeks, not because your team's not good, but because now we're looking at you a little differently now. You were watching the Bengals against the Ravens as this cute little up-and-coming team against the Ravens, right? Like when you were up 10-0 and look like crap in the first half against the Lions, it's just always, that's the Bengals. It's battle between two bad teams. Who cares? When the Bengals were down 14-0 against the Jaguars in the first half, it's the Bengals. They're not that much better than the Jags. It's about right. We figured that. You get the benefit of the doubt. No one's really beating you up about it. But I promise you this much. If the Bengals are up 7-3 at halftime and have turned it over a few times, guess what national hosts, not me, are going to say? Me, probably. Man, I don't know. I thought they were feeling themselves. They don't have that killer instinct that they had against the Ravens. They got to have it every single week. I think they're starting to buy into the hype. If the Cincinnati Bengals don't execute perfectly against the Jets on Sunday, the critics will start to pounce on them a little bit. Not saying they don't believe that they're good or not, crapping on them completely, but the Bengals have a responsibility to show up and show out on Sunday. Do you agree? Give us a call. 518-1410. 518-1410. I'm not hating on the Bengals. I'm being serious here. If you think that everyone's going to watch the Bengals in the same light on Sunday, you're wrong. They're not looking at the Bengals as a cute up-and-coming team anymore. They are looking at the Bengals as what you wanted them to look at them as. The division leaders. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, AFC North champions. That's what you want them to look. You wanted that. Can your team handle that? Because if they lose on Sunday, it's not because the Jets are better. It's because the Bengals weren't mentally tough enough to handle that. Let's discuss it. 518-1410. I'll be back.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
KTH Parts Industries in St. Paris, Ohio has immediate openings for second and third shift production associates. KTH promotes from within, offers medical, dental, 401k, attendance bonus, and a competitive wage, starting at just over $19 per hour with annual increases. KTH will be hosting walk-in interviews Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. through 3 p.m. Please bring a resume and photo ID. Visit kth.net for more information. KTH is an equal opportunity employer. Hustler Turf commercial mowers are built tough to work hard. Whether you need a fleet of mowers or are a one-man show, you don't have time for downtime. Hustler mowers are over-engineered, overbuilt, and tested well beyond what is required, with the most complete lineup in the industry, including exclusives like a 104-inch Super 104, an 88-inch stand-on, and industry-leading warranties. Hustler mowers are ready to handle what you throw at them. Build your fleet to be reliable and versatile with Hustler Turf. Visit Small Engine Service Pros in New Carlisle today.
Secure your home with our wide selection of True Bolt lock sets and deadbolts with 11% off at Menards. True Bolt door locks provide homeowners, professional installers, and builders with quality products at an affordable price. The Dublin Passage lock set comes in 4 finishes to match your decor, starting at $8.99 after 11% off. Get 11% off everything. Good through October 30th. Savings are mail-in rebates. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
We're a farm store, a family store, a look what I found store. We're a store made for real people and some real beasts. We're a hey neighbor kind of store and an everyday low price store. We're Rural King, and we're working hard to be your favorite store. Check out the huge selection of men's, women's, and kids' Wrangler clothing at the lowest prices every day, like these Wrangler Retro Bootcut jeans for just $49.99.
What makes AutoZone America's #1 battery destination? Because they offer free battery testing and charging and reliable replacement batteries, and they've always got your battery solution. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
The Bengals and the Jets will kick off at 1 o'clock this coming up Sunday. And, of course, College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and I will be live at Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall for the Sunday morning tailgate show. Every Sunday morning, Keith Byers and I, we hang out from 11 to 1 p.m. The show starts at 11:30. And, of course, we get you set for all the big NFL Sunday games that afternoon. And then, of course, we recap the big day that was and always is in college football from College Football Saturday. A big one coming up, the big show coming up this Sunday from Frickers, of course, where we'll be recapping what we hope is a huge win over Penn State for the Buckeyes, talking about the Browns and the Steelers and the Bengals and the Jets. But as I said earlier, I don't necessarily look at this matchup as the Bengals versus the Jets. I look at this as the Bengals versus the Bengals. The Bengals versus a whole new set of expectations. This is I'm not hating on the Bengals at all in this segment. I'm being serious when I approach this game for the Bengals. I'm not looking to see how the Jets match up. I don't care. We know the Jets are bad. We know that the Bengals are better. Vegas agrees. The Bengals are a 10.5-point favorite heading into Sunday, as we currently sit here on this Wednesday afternoon. But everyone out there, you guys wanted the attention on your team. You wanted everyone to stop disrespecting your team. You wanted people to put some respect on their name, right? That's what's happening now. Stephen A. Smith says he'll take Joe Burrow over Lamar Jackson. Every host out there, national, local, all that, they're big believers in the Cincinnati Bengals now, and rightfully so. I'm not mocking that. Like they did. Look, they didn't just beat the Ravens; they destroyed the Ravens. They're 5-2. They're in first place. They'll be 6-2 most likely 8 games into the season at the halfway point. You win a couple games into, I never believe in the standings 2, 3, even sometimes 4 weeks into the season. I wasn't buying into the Bengals at the beginning. But then they kept winning, and I kept having egg on my face, and I kept getting crap from all of you. And eventually, I had to start a show on Monday celebrating the Bengals destroying the Ravens. And I'm not even that mad about it. I'm happy for you guys. I wish you all would have been as happy for me as I am for you back when the Browns were doing this a year ago. But that's besides the point. I'll let bygones be bygones. It is what it is. But in all seriousness, the Bengals, it's a new kind of pressure, and it starts not on Sunday. It started the second the clock hit 0 when you beat the Ravens. How will you conduct yourself in the press conference? How would you conduct yourself in film session, in prep, in the first day of practice, for the week, prepping for the Jets? You went from kicking the Ravens' ass in Lamar Jackson to the guy he took the job from, Joe Flacco, who's not even starting on Sunday for the Jets, and some no-name I've never even heard of. Like, this isn't about the Jets, folks, but it kind of is, because the Jets are nobody. They have a roster full of nobodies. They're coached by a guy that everyone was hoping would be somebody in Robert Saleh, but he's a nobody as well. The Jets are the Jets. But they have the Browns coming up, and you're in first place, and you're coming off a huge win, and all the national shows are drooling over you. They're telling everybody how great the Bengals are. Now people are running to the TVs, their phones, and everything to pay attention to the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you have a sluggish first quarter, people are going to complain. They're going to rip you. See, it was a fluke. We know the Ravens aren't that bad, and we damn sure we knew the Bengals weren't that good, right? I'm not saying that, but that's what people will say. You guys were up 10-0 over the Lions in the first half a few weeks ago. You did rout them, but you guys looked bad in the first half. You were still up 10-0. Do you think people aren't going to be chirping if that's the case against the Jets? How do you destroy the Ravens and you find yourself in a one-possession game at halftime against the backup quarterback for the New York Jets? You think people aren't going to chirp? Remember the game against the Jaguars? You're down 14-0 at halftime. Your home fans, your fans booed you off the field. You know, no one else cared about that. Why? Because the Bengals didn't have expectations. They're down 14-0 at half because they're the Bengals. They're supposed to be, right? You don't believe that, but national people did. The Lions, you're only up 10-0 over the Lions at half, and you look sluggish and horrible doing it. Well, that's the Bengals. They're not that good. They're supposed to. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. You know, what did surprise people is when they beat up on the Ravens. They beat up on the Packers. They lost to the Packers, but they were right there. It took overtime for Aaron Rodgers, a bad man, as Stephen A. calls him. It took overtime to beat the Bengals. That's when things started to kind of turn in the right direction. Like, maybe we have something here, right? That's all out the door now. You proved you're somebody this past Sunday, but can you stay as somebody? 518-1410. Let's go to Nick. Nick, I appreciate you holding. How are you, sir?
Pretty good, man.
What do you have for us today?
Well, now that the tides have kind of turned, or the tables have turned, I guess, I do feel more comfortable kind of critiquing the Bengals instead of sticking up for them all the time.
Fair enough.
So I do appreciate your conversation earlier, what you had to say. I don't think it was a hater type conversation. And I do think that your criticality is fair. That is, to me, if we're going to look for improvement on Sunday, what I want to see as far as improvement is first half scoring. I really feel like, especially against like Green Bay, our defense saved us in the first half of a lot of these games. If a couple of those teams were to get out to a 24-10 lead before half, I don't know how many of these games we would have won. So I do think that, especially first drives, if we can score on first drives, I think that is going to show improvement. Another thing I wanted to say, and I do think it's somewhat relevant, is like you had said, you know, it's the Bengals versus the Bengals, and it's the same old Bengals it's always been. But in reality, man, it's not. It's not. They've had a lot of turnover. I mean, not turnovers, but turnover in the organization. And one thing I was thinking about is, you know, 3 years ago with Andy Dalton, if he threw a 30-yard pass, my gut reaction is, oh, God. Like, where's it going to go? What's going to happen? You know, and
it's usually on a 3rd and long, you know, if he throws.
Right. But I feel like the team that we have now hasn't really let us down in that fashion yet. I mean, Joe Burrow had a really horrible game against the Bears, but
and that happens. Like, I didn't beat up on them for that. You know, at the time, I was like, okay, see, they're vulnerable. That's who they are. But you know what? We're 7 games in. I've seen way more good than bad. Like, they're not even average.
Yeah.
I think they're at the very least, they're above average. But we saw who they could be at the most against the Ravens this past Sunday. I still think they're still growing and getting better, to be honest with you. Nick, did we lose you? Nick, I think we lost. Nick, call back. I want to get you. I don't even think you meant to hang up, or maybe you were in shock because I'm saying nice things. I have no clue. Nick, give us a call back, and I promise you we'll get you back to the front of the line. Let's go to Philip. Philip, how are you, sir?
All right. How are you?
Good. So the last caller was being nice. I hung up on him, I think, or he hung up on me. Hopefully I don't hang up on you, and hopefully you don't hang up on me. What do you got for us today?
Well, I'm a lifelong Bengals fan, so I'd be surprised if you don't hang up on me. But
come on, I've been all right today. I haven't been that bad this week.
45 years of following this team. I'm very excited, and I think you hit the nail on the head actually going into break. The game against the Jets is really about, can this team handle success? I think we've seen that they're good enough to play with just about anybody in the NFL. Now it's, are we going to read our own press clippings, let this go to our head, or are we really going to keep focus and put the throttle down on the Jets? I am optimistic because I look at players like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And at LSU, they had plenty of games like this where they were supposed to win, and at least those two guys have the mentality. Hopefully that's carried over to the team, but that's what I'm going to be looking for in the game Sunday. Can they handle success, or are they sitting back reading all the stuff in the press about how good they are now?
Yeah, and I guess if there's anything to critique 7 games in, and they've come away with wins. As long as you're winning, that's all that matters. But keep in mind, I brought up the Jags game, I brought up the Lions game, and they were up 10-0. But I mean, and even to be honest, the Ravens, they played solid in the first half, but they just put their foot on the throat of the Ravens in the second half. They're a second half team. They were down 14-0 against the Jaguars and were just in the first half. They couldn't do it. Whatever Zach Taylor tells them at halftime, they come out and they're a completely different team. The Bengals beat up on the Ravens, but a lot of that came in the second half. If the Bengals could put together a full 4-quarter game, I think they could do more than what they even did against the Ravens, which is scary because if they're saving that for the Browns game, I'm going to be pretty pissed off if you ask me, Philip. I'm just going to be honest. But you know what I mean? Like 4 games. Yeah. The first half, if they could put together 4 quarters of like what they do in that second half, look out. I think they could be even better. But for whatever reason, they are not a first half team. They are very sluggish in the first half. It's like that feeling out period. I think a lot of that is a young team. Jamar Chase still trying to figure out the DBs. He's facing all these guys for the first time. Joe Burrow's facing most of these guys for the first time. It's like once they kind of get a couple possessions against them and they know how they tick, that's when they make them pay in the second half. Maybe that's what it is. We'll see. I think that's signs of a young team, but signs of plenty of room to grow. And when you could still grow a lot and you're 5-2, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we have been slow starting, but again, them as long as I have, all those years with Marvin Lewis as a coach where we made absolutely no halftime adjustments that were visible as a fan for 15 years. It's nice to see that we're able to take what we have in the first half and we can adjust and we can do things different in the second half and have success. But you are exactly right. If they can put 4 quarters together, and I'm hoping they do that on November 7th because I'm going to be there chanting Who Day and singing the song you played yesterday. But if we can put it together for 4 quarters, I don't think there's anybody that we can't beat.
Very good points there, Philip. You're not beating the Browns, I promise you that much. But I'll give it to you for everyone else. How about that? Hey, you helped.
We will see.
You helped the Browns, man. You brought the Browns within a game of first place last week, so I appreciate that. But good hearing from you, man.
All right, you too.
Take care. 518-1410. 518-1410. Is this Bob in Riverside?
Absolutely. How you doing, buddy?
Good to hear from you. How have I been doing so far? I've been all right for the Bengals. I haven't been tearing them up too much. There's nothing to tear them up on.
I know it's hard, but you've been doing a pretty fair job. Now I'm going to partially agree and partially disagree. This is what I expect. If they come out a little sluggish in the front, it would be nice if they could come out and jump on somebody and quit having the little dumb penalties and make the third and twos that they never make until the second half. Really, that's what has stopped a lot of their scoring in the first half. That's what's stopped a lot of their drives. But what I'm more concerned about, or what not necessarily concerned, what I like to see with the team is just to continue to improve. I don't care about them, coming out there. We'll put 4 quarters together in game number 8. You need to be peaking. As long as you're winning these games, be peaking toward the end of the year. I don't want to see your best in week 8, 9, 10. Then what do you got? That's just like Tampa Bay last year. They were 7-5, and then they start peaking. Most teams that you see that go a long way and do pretty well are teams that actually start peaking toward. Well, we're almost in November, around this time period, around November. A little bit half of November, starting into December. As long as they win, I don't care if they can come out and score 28 points a second half like they did against Baltimore. I think they scored about 24 against Detroit. in the second. I don't care.
Yeah, but
Get
see,
your
here's why you
10.
need to care. Because when I said play 4 full quarters, I don't expect 24 points in the first half, 24 in the second half, as if I'm expecting them to average 48 points a game. But what you're saying is, I mean, what I mean by that is, Bob, is that, okay, you have these amazing second halves and you're putting up 24, 28 points. You're putting up all these points in the second half. You can't always rely on those big bursts in the second half. When you get to the playoffs, you think you're going to be able to rely on 28 and 30 point second halves? That's not going to happen. So yes, I think it is important to figure out how to be more efficient in the first half to balance it out with the second. I definitely see your point. You're right. Because like hell, look at the Steelers, 11-0 last year. They're playing their worst football by the end of the year. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish. I agree with you there. My point about that is just like finding a way to be more efficient to where you don't have to have these monster second halves to win football games. They're winning football games in 2 quarters instead of allowing 4 quarters for them to do their work. There's still room to grow. I'm with you. I'm not expecting perfect football, but you would like at this point to start seeing them build off of these things and work on those.
Yeah, and I agree, totally agree with that. But I think Zach has the pulse on that because they know why they haven't been able to move the ball and score in the first half. Third down, if you look at their third down percentages in the first half in comparison to the second half, that's what it is. These 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, which are favorable, they never make. Somebody slips or somebody misses a block or somebody goes the wrong way or something stupid like that. That's what has killed them, their third down percentage in the first half. But like the other caller said also, it's so much more refreshing not to have the Marvin Lewis never make an adjustment. We never made an adjustment. Let's just keep it the same way and lose all the time. Whereas this team, he can at least go in there and make some adjustments and then come out and start playing ball. But even the playoffs, I don't even like to talk about the playoff stuff because do I trust the Bengals? Yeah, they're fun. They're a fun watch. But do I look at the Bengals? Well, the Bengals are all of this and all that. And the national media, I wish they'd stay away. Just stay under the ground. I know that ain't going to happen because of the fact that they're winning. But I don't even like that because they're not just, going to cruise and the Bengals are so great and this, that, and the other. They're a young team. Continue to learn, continue to build on what you have, and then we'll see what happens at the end of the year. Because, I'm a week-to-week guy. That's why I never go down and be making them checks. I always tell you that. Quit making them checks at the beginning of the year, wins and losses, because in the NFL, you never know. But you lose this week, yeah, that would be pretty stupid to beat Baltimore.
Bob, if you could give me some content in July that I can replace that with, I'll be glad to get rid of the check mark wins and losses. Okay? But, Bob, I'm out of time. But, no, I definitely know what you're saying.
All right, buddy. Have a good one, man. Thanks, man.
Yep. 518-1410. Bob, I like Bob. He's been a caller for a while. I love when he calls in. Sometimes we go back and forth and all that. Actually, we do that with everybody. But I do appreciate Bob's take on that. No, to Bob's point, yes, I get that. Like, brings up a good point. Hey, I'm actually happy you're not peaking right now because it's a double-edged sword. Would you love your team to be playing really well right now? Absolutely. But there is time. Like even Cleveland. I'm so glad that Cleveland, if they're being bit by the injury bug, I'm hoping that they're getting it out of the way now. And they're 4-3 on top of it. And then they get everybody back and they start getting healthy. They start winning football games and they take momentum into the playoffs and boom. I would much rather have that than the Browns to be kicking everyone's ass right now to get to week 13 and 14 and then have half your OL out, have your quarterback go out, all your wide receivers are out. That's a problem. So again, not saying that just because everyone's coming back that they can't get re-injured, but it's like, usually every team has this wave of injuries at some point throughout a year. You got to try to manage the storm a bit. Once you manage that, how do you look on the other side? Well, the Browns have 10 weeks of football left to come out on the other side of this, on the right side, as opposed to last year, like the Steelers, starting out 11-0. And you start getting banged up in the second half, and then you don't have any time to be able to heal up and get in any kind of rhythm heading into the postseason. So to Bob's point, I agree with him on that. Right now it's more so about, just continuing to get better each week. But that's what I meant by that. Like the Bengals are winning games, but they're doing a lot of it because of these big 20-plus point second halves, 24-point second halves. That's not going to happen in the postseason. You're going to win in the postseason by playing consistent football from kickoff to the end. And if the Bengals are fortunate enough to get to the postseason, they're not going to be able to rely on playing the Jaguars and the Lions and the Jets and the Bears. And they lost to the Bears, but that's that whatever. Every team has that one bad game. I believe that was theirs. They could potentially be 6-1 right now, as crazy as it sounds. So at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to, can they be more consistent for 4 full quarters? You shouldn't have to rely on these 25. Like sometimes that doesn't happen. To sit there and have to rely on these 25-plus point second halves to win football games, that's a great thing that you have the explosiveness to do that. But what happens when you face that team that's playing really good defensively, that's not going to be giving up them big plays that the Ravens were, and you're not able to come back like that? Like, I do think it is important that they get off to better starts in the first half. We have ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz coming up in 10 minutes. Hour 3 coming up on the other side. 518-1410. More of your calls next.
Oh, look, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
We've been expecting you.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish is
pretty bad.
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind. Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
No matter your learning style or experience level, Babbel has lessons designed for you that will get you speaking quickly and confidently.
I tried learning Spanish before, but I couldn't stick with it until I found Babbel.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
I can't wait to use our new language skills on our upcoming adventures.
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Deb's constipation with belly pain, discomfort, and bloating kept giving her grief. She talked to her doctor to get some relief. Turns out Deb had irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, which was a start. Saying yes to Linzess helped her do her part.
Linzess, or linaclotide, is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. Linzess works differently than laxatives. It lets you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 6, and it should not be given to children 6 to less than 18. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. There could be more to your story with IBS-C. Talk to a doctor today. Say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS. Sponsored by AbbVie and Ironwood Pharmaceuticals.
In the Army National Guard, soldiers serve part-time and close to home.
My community means everything to me. It helped shape me into who I am today, and is where I choose to raise my own family. That's why I joined the Army National Guard. I'm proud of where I'm from, and as a soldier, I get to give back to the people that helped me succeed. The education benefits I got from serving helped me get my degree and jumpstart my career. The training and leadership skills I've gained from the Army National Guard help me every day when I teach young people, help my neighbors, and look out for my community. I know that when my neighbors need us the most, my fellow soldiers and I will be ready. My family loves it here, and my part-time service means we get to stay here.
Serve part-time in the community you live in as a proud member of the Army National Guard. Talk to your local recruiter or visit nationalguard.com. Sponsored by the Ohio Army National Guard. Aired by the Ohio Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Some people think fall is the best time of the year. It may also be a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
WING 1410 Dayton. Dayton's ESPN Radio.
All right, we welcome you back. ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. He's going to hang out with us coming up here in 5 minutes. We did have a couple calls that dropped during the break. I apologize. We'll get to those coming up here around the corner. Paul Dehner Jr. covers the Bengals for The Athletic. He says on Twitter, it's a pretty clean injury report for the Bengals this week. He said it's basically what's become the standard knee rest for Hopkins, and then, of course, taking it easy with Chris Evans' hamstring. But Trey Hopkins, center for the Bengals, of course, did not participate in practice today. But as Paul Dehner Jr. said, that's just kind of standard right now for how they're handling him with load management. Limited participation in practice, Trey Hendrickson for the Bengals. Keep an eye on that. Again, just limited right there. Of course, having some shoulder issues as well. Jackson Carman Foreman, full participation in practice today. Again, he had missed some time, of course, due to COVID a while back, so keep that in mind. Of course, now that he's back, we'll see how this, offensive line continues to gel and grow moving forward. As far as the Cleveland Browns, their health chart, well, of course, their health update or whatever. I mean, that list is a little long. The Wednesday injury report heading into this matchup with the Steelers, of course, OBJ limited in practice today, as well as Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb says is right now, as long as there's no setbacks in practice, he will be ready to go this coming up week. Jadeveon Clowney did not participate in practice today. Jack Conklin limited in practice. That's a good sign right there for the Browns to be able to get him back moving forward. Jarvis Landry did not practice, but is expected to play this Sunday. Baker Mayfield was limited in practice, also expected to play. The Browns are getting healthier. The Browns are getting their guys back. They're getting Nick Chubb most likely back. Jarvis Landry, OBJ was limited in practice. Baker Mayfield limited. But if you got Jarvis, OBJ, and Baker and Nick Chubb, and you got Conklin back, and you got that offensive line back intact, I like the Browns' chances as they are 3.5-point favorites against the Steelers this coming up weekend. The one to keep an eye on that I do believe is a big deal for the Browns, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He did not practice today. Not sure what the update is as far as expectations for him this weekend. Treader, as well, the center for the Bengals, or for the Browns, was limited in practice. They're going to need him. They're going to need Conklin. They're going to need this offensive line, full and ready to go. Wills, same thing. He was limited in practice. That's going to be interesting. And then, of course, Denzel Ward. I mean, he lives. You know how back when, look, I loved him as a Buckeye. I was not a fan of the Browns drafting him when that they did. I know that when he's on the field, he's one of the top defensive backs in the NFL, but the dude's always injured. He's always hurt. He's always on this list. You remember Darrelle Revis, how he was so damn good? They always called it Revis Island. Well, they call it Ward Island, except the Ward Island is the IL. He's always on the injured list. It's unbelievable. Can't knock a guy for getting hurt, but the dude's always hurt. Your best ability is your availability. And we can't even focus on the talent that he has when he's on the field because he's rarely on the field. When you want to talk about the Browns and what to do financially moving forward, they better not pay him a cent. I am not okay with the Browns investing in him financially at all. I think it makes zero sense to take a chance with him. I will take them going over spending money on Baker than him. He does not bring enough to the table to justify giving him the money that he's going to ask for. Now, I mean, would you lose him? Most likely, yes. Is it worth it to pay him? No. He's not healthy enough. He's not reliable enough. This team has enough guys that they have to worry about from an injured standpoint that they don't need to be worrying about a guy that lives on the IL. ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. We'll talk college football playoffs. The college football playoff poll, the first one of the season, will be released a week from last night. We'll talk about who the top 4 teams in the country are in Jason Fitz's eyes as we head into a big week in college football. Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Cincinnati. Every time they're on the field, it's a big opportunity for them as they continue to stay relevant at the top. They want to look good in the eyes of the committee. A big poll coming out a week from last night. We'll talk about that with ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. He joins us next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy, a high near 54. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, a low near 48. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers, a high near 63. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for video, phone, chat, and conference rooms. Zoom enables real-time collaboration no matter where your teams are. Global enterprises trust the easy-to-use, reliable, and secure Zoom platform to power high-performance teams. Empower your workforce with Zoom. Save 15% on meetings, chat, and phone with a Zoom United bundle. Visit zoom.com/bundle. Zoom, how the world connects.
The whole goal is to point people to something bigger.
What if the news was different and covered more than one side of the story? Not just the who or the what, but the why. What if it took you closer?
It's information and people want it.
So you can make up your own mind. What if the news lets you think for yourself? Introducing a new point of view. Yours. Newsy. Watch Newsy free on your TV. Learn more at newsy.com.
Right now, people are home with their pets more often, and I think now, especially with the shedding, they're more cognizant of what's going on and that it's an actual issue, and Dynovite has helped tremendously in our house with that.
I just heard the Dynovite commercial so many times, I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot, and I ordered it and tried it, and it worked.
The Dynovite, the being at home, working with them, they all love it.
Me and Chewy are together 24/7.
Within 3 weeks, he's not scratching and itching, and he's an all-around happier dog.
DINOVITE.com.
If you need new roofing, siding, or gutters, skylights, or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding in Fairborn has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Lance Roofing and Siding, 8460 Dayton Springfield Road in Fairborn. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722 or online at lanceroofing.com.
O'Reilly. Don't miss See Better Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, get a $15 gift card after mail-in rebate when you purchase a pair of select wiper blades. Our professional parts people will even install them for free. Plus, earn triple O rewards points. Get ready for the weather ahead during See Better Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
There are many ways to catch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. You can catch it live right here on 1410 Wing AM, or you can stream the show at wingam.com. But now we have another way that you can take in the show. You can now watch the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash live on ESPN Dayton's Facebook page. Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Justin Kinner with you here on a Wednesday. The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Mine is Kev Nash today. Is, of course, presented by Orion Sports Medicine and OGW Energy Resources. I hope everyone's had a great week. I know we've been celebrating all week the Cincinnati Bengals, of course. They didn't just beat the Ravens, they destroyed the Ravens this past Sunday. And, of course, as all of you know, I've been very, I've praised the Bengals. I've always told you, a team that's won 6 games in 2 years, of course there's going to be a lot of negativity when it comes to talking about that team. But I've always said that when the Bengals started winning and there was actually positive things to talk about, I would talk about it. And how could you not talk about the Bengals this week, of course, and that's what we've spent a lot of time on. It is funny, as we're live on Facebook, Nolan Russell on YouTube, he messages into the show. He says, hey, don't put your positive mojo on us, Ricky Bobby. I want you to keep hating on us because, as you guys know, the Bengals are undefeated whenever I pick them to lose. So I might kind of flip the script and pick them to lose to the Jets this coming up Sunday, or to beat the Jets on Sunday, and see what happens. But as we bring on our next guest, excited to talk about the Bengals' big win over the Ravens with ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. And Jason, as I said earlier before we brought you on, the Bengals' opponent this Sunday, it's not the Jets. To me, the big Bengals opponent on Sunday is actually the Bengals. How do they respond after a big win like that? As crazy as it sounds, there's a lot of hype, a lot of talk, everyone talking about the Bengals. That could work against them. I'm not projecting them to lose, but man, it is going to be interesting to see how they respond after that big win and after all the love they've been getting this week.
I mean, it's the very definition of a trap game, right? Like, especially when you know that you got the Browns and the Raiders coming up after that. So, you could see that logic. I just think the Jets are so stinking bad that, it's hard for me to see the Bengals losing it. But these are the sorts of games. And look, I'll be fair. This is exactly what I said about the Raiders going into the Philly game. Like, at some point, if you are going to be a playoff team, it's not just about beating other playoff teams. It's also about handily winning the games you're supposed to handily win. And that's where the Bengals find themselves. Like, it's been a long time since I think Cincinnati fans could say, hey, we are clearly markedly the better team in this situation. And that is Cincinnati. The interesting thing for Cincinnati is how do they keep it going? Because there are a lot of really good teams in the AFC that have tougher schedules remaining than Cincinnati. So if Cincinnati can play this way throughout the rest of the season, got to feel really good about this team going into the playoffs.
Yeah, especially because the fact that they haven't just beat Pittsburgh and the Ravens. They've beat Pittsburgh and the Ravens on the road. They didn't just beat Pittsburgh and the Ravens on the road. They destroyed the Ravens and the Steelers on the road. There's a lot for them to feel confident about. They lost a game they shouldn't to the Bears. They beat the Bears. They're 6-1, most likely 7-1, most likely if they beat the Jets on Sunday, heading into that big showdown with the Browns a week from Sunday. That's what I'm most excited about, of course. Now you look at the Browns, who are starting to get a little bit healthy. Dominic Foxworth earlier today, he had my blood boil. And of course, when I opened up the show talking about when he said that 100% of Case Keenum is better than 60% of Baker Mayfield. And I said, well, Baker Mayfield's been playing at about 60% all season, and his numbers outside of touchdowns are all better than all his career numbers. Higher completion percentage, more completions 7 weeks in than what he has been in years past, more passing yards, all of that. So I'm just not a believer of the Browns are better off with Case Keenum than Baker Mayfield, even a little banged up. Where are you with that?
Yeah, not at all. I think, and Dominique, who is a friend, I respect the heck out of him. He's just wrong sometimes, and he's wrong on this one. 100% of Case Keenum is not this is where you play my favorite game to play is shoes on the other foot. So if it was another team and they had Case Keenum starting as quarterback, would you laugh at him? I think we all would. I'm never going to feel better about my team with Case Keenum as the starting quarterback than I would with anybody else. I mean, Case has won some games in the league, and I get that, but he's won some games in the league when things have been structured around him in a way where virtually anybody could win those games. So Case Keenum is not a high-level starting quarterback. Baker Mayfield, when he's healthy, is, but Baker Mayfield, when he's dinged up, is still going to be like most teams. You want whatever you can get out of your starting quarterback. I don't think the Browns are better off with Case, and I think this is just an example of us sort of trying to find a reason to downplay Baker Mayfield, and I'm not buying it at all. So Dominique's just wrong.
All right. Well, I feel better. I thought you were going to take his side because I thought you ESPN guys were going to team up. But no, I like you, Jace. I've always liked you. I like you even more now. So I like to hear it. So, but ESPN...
you got to be honest with this stuff. And look, I think at the end of the day, it's okay to say, hey, the Browns are a really talented team that needs to win some football games because they're better than their record is today. And I know you only are what your record is, but it's okay to say, hey, we need to see more from the Browns because we have really high expectations. But I'm not going to go so far as to say that Case Keenum's ever an improvement over Baker Mayfield.
What I'm pumped about is Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, a 6-2 Bengals team going head-to-head with what I hope is a 5-3 Browns team in a battle for potential first place here in a couple weeks. That, everyone thinks I just hate the Bengals. I don't. I actually want the Bengals to be really good the way they are now because as a Browns fan, I just want that Browns-Bengals matchup to mean something. And right now it's going to mean a ton coming up. And I want it to mean a ton with as many of the Warriors available on both sides of the ball for both teams. And it looks like if the Browns can get healthy and escape Pittsburgh on Sunday with the win and healthy, of course, we're going to get that. But I do want to ask you this. Look, when you look at Derrick Henry and the Titans, what he is doing is just it's not normal. We're not used to seeing a position that's not quarterback dominate the league the way Derrick Henry is. I can also make an argument for, I go from hating the Bengals to making an obscure comment like this, but Jamar Chase, I think, is as equally dominant for the Bengals as Derrick Henry is for the Titans right now. I know he's only a rookie right now when you talk about Jamar Chase, but what he is doing, it's not just the big, catches that he's making. It's the yards after the catch. He's making plays that no other receiver's making right now. When you look at those two, which one's more important to their team right now?
Honestly, I think it's Derrick Henry just because of the way the Titans are built, right? If that's any running back other than Derrick Henry, the Titans this year at best are a 500 team. I know you can't be 500 anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
What we're seeing from Derrick Henry right now is Hall of Fame level play. And I think right now, if I had a vote for the MVP, he would be my vote for the MVP. And that's largely because for all the weapons that the Titans have, most of those weapons have underperformed throughout the course of this season, and they've had a banged-up offensive line, and it doesn't matter. And there have been some runs where there have literally been every player stacked in the box that can be stacked in the box, and you still can't stop Derrick Henry. So if we keep talking about the usage rate and when it's going to fall off, it's not. He's built differently. He's just different from head to toe, and it's so special to see what we're seeing from a running back. I think it just hits different. But that being said, Jamar Chase is, in my mind, not getting enough love for Rookie of the Year at this point, and is really a superstar. And I was big on Penei Sewell and why they should have drafted him. And, every week we'll have this conversation. But realistically, I can watch Jamar Chase for anything I thought about the draft coming in and say, holy cow, it's just special watching somebody that's capable of getting open on medium-sized routes, on medium-depth routes as much as he is on deep routes. Like, Jamar Chase looks unstoppable right now.
No, he does. And again, it's not. And by the way, like when we talked about the justification for taking an offensive lineman over wide receiver, it wasn't from a talent to talent thing. We didn't say that Penei Sewell was a better offensive lineman than Jamar Chase's wide receiver. It was just the team need at that point. But also, when you think about the perception of wide receivers in the draft, usually the wide receivers that are taken higher in the draft, and we give all that build to them, they never live up to it. It's always the receivers later in the draft. Jamar Chase is one of those rare breeds that doesn't just live up to the hype, but I think he's surpassed it. I think the biggest Bengals fans out there that were big fans of the Jamar Chase draft, I don't even think that they expected him to be this good, because as good as he is, he's better than most of the top receivers in football right now. I'm shocked at not just how good not that the fact that he's good, but how good he is and how fast he's adapted to the NFL game. Especially he missed all of last season in college football.
Yeah, that's the biggest part. The adaptation is the biggest part to me, because we've seen this year, I'll use Henry Ruggs as an example for Vegas. Like, Ruggs is somebody that last year was okay at best, and this year looks like a number one. And part of that is just, I've talked to him a couple of times, and he's talked about the difficulty in trying to figure out how to be a pro and moving from Alabama to Vegas. And, like, there's real stuff that happens for these kids that are suddenly asked to be big professional athletes. I think his adaptation to being such a great pro is something we shouldn't take for granted, because he's better today than CD Lamb was a few games into his career, than Jerry Jeudy, than Henry Ruggs, and picture your poison, Amari Cooper. Like, you can talk about the wide receivers that we thought were sure things that didn't have the quick sort of now I am a sure thing in the NFL. I think it takes an extra second to become a great wide receiver in the NFL, unless your name is Jamar Chase. And, it really stunning to me. It's special to me. And this only opens up sort of the realm of possibility for the Bengals to become as creative on offense as they want to be, because you are not going to stop Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow with one person. I don't care who that one person is. So now you've got a game plan weapon. You've got somebody that offensive or defensive coordinators sit in a room right now and say, that's the guy we got to stop. Man, that is difficult to do. So, and to have already done that this quickly in his career, man, I'm stunned at how good he is, and it's only going to open up to the future of who he can be as a pro. This is exciting.
Your Raiders are 5-2. I saw First Take with Stephen A. earlier in the week. They did a debate, the 5-2 Raiders versus the 5-2 Bengals, which is more of a surprise start. And I thought the Raiders, I was like, that's kind of an interesting one right there. But when you really think about all the elements that they've had to endure this year, look at the division that they play in. You have Justin Herbert and the Chargers, who are sending in the positive direction. The Broncos, when healthy, had higher expectations of what they're at right now. And of course, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you have Gruden, who gets fired for that huge distraction for those horrible things that were said in those emails. And there's so much working against the Raiders that you're like, man, how are they 5-2 sitting atop the West? And then there's the Bengals with the Ravens and with the Browns and with all of those teams in that division that everyone's focusing on and not giving them the light of day. Yet here they are, the Raiders in first place in the West and the Bengals in the North. Which team is more of a surprise 5-2 in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the Raiders are more of a surprise just because of the off-the-field stuff. And, and then you factor in the fact that the Raiders won their last game. It's a new coaching staff, basically. I mean, same coordinators, but new approach to everything. And they won their last game without Josh Jacobs for a half and Darren Waller for a game. I mean, you start to think of, and injuries are impacting everybody. I get it. But the number of things that have gone wrong for the Raiders so far this year would make it really easy for the season to just go off the rails. So the fact that it hasn't, anytime something happens where you lose your coach this early in the season, and it's not because the team isn't performing on the field, I don't know how you hold it together. So I'm really surprised to see the Raiders be 5-2. I'm also surprised for the Raiders to look really good. And that's why Jordan Cornette, who works for the ACC network and ESPN, is a close friend of mine and is the big flag bearer for the Bengals and the franchise. And he and I have talked a lot over the last few days. Like, that November 21st matchup between the Bengals and the Raiders has huge impact for the AFC. I mean, it's two teams that I think have squarely put themselves in the thick of not just the wild card conversation, but can they even win their division? And that game against each other is rare to see two teams have the opportunity to really play in a who can win this matchup. Two dynamic offenses, two quarterbacks playing at such a high level. I think November 21st is a date the entire league's in the circle on their calendar for two teams that nobody thought would be here that are going to be very good at that point, playing for playoff positioning.
ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz hanging out with us here this week. Jason, we'll talk, last thing on college football here before we let you go. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We transition over to the college football side of things, and ESPN puts out their college football playoff predictor, and the first poll comes out a week from last night, which I can't tell you how excited I am. I know you are. You have so many projects going on right now at the ESPN that we'll touch on before we end this conversation. But the college football playoff predictor at ESPN has Ohio State as the fifth, they have the sixth highest percent chance of making the college football playoff. Ahead of them, the Bearcats 7-0, no surprise there, at least to a certain extent in the eyes of most. But Michigan at 7-0. Michigan, where are you with Michigan? Maybe it's my Buckeye blood that just can't look at them and give them the respect or whatever. I don't know what it is, but I am curious. Do they really, in your eyes, have a higher percent chance of making the playoff than Ohio State at this point?
No, and I think we're just way too bought in on Michigan right now for a team that, look, I'm not sure there are a lot of teams that run the football better than Michigan does, and I believe in their ability to run the ball, and we've seen some teams be susceptible to being run on, but Michigan is not. I don't care what the numbers look like. Michigan hasn't had great quarterback play at this point. Michigan, to me, is one of those teams that looks great because they're undefeated and they're a big brand, but they're about to face a gauntlet of teams. I don't think Michigan State is a given this weekend. I mean, I know talked to a lot of my buddies that have watched the film and broken it down. I think, there are some matchup nightmares for Michigan State taking on Michigan. I know it's strength on weakness. Michigan runs the ball well. Michigan State gets run on, but Michigan State can score on anybody. I'm really interested to see how the Michigan defense holds up over the next 3 or 4 weeks. What's going to happen is a lot of the Big Ten teams are going to cannibalize each other through the process of it. What I don't want to have happen is us get it twisted. Like Ohio State lost the game, but who's playing better today, right now, on a neutral field? I would take Ohio State over Michigan. So I think Ohio State is getting a little played in this process, and we're going to see that from the committee. I do believe on Tuesday the committee is going to tell us that they're worried more about how teams are playing today than who's won or lost the game in the process. So, I expect to see Cincinnati get a little bit of disrespect and Ohio State get a little bit too much respect on Tuesday when we hear from the committee.
So this is my favorite part of the playoff when we start, comparing resumes and all that. I love this time of year. But Ohio State, like I tweeted this out the other day that honestly, the only two teams that are playing perfect football right now are Georgia and Ohio State. I think Bama, as explosive as they are, they've just kind of had some ebbs and flows. Ohio State had theirs earlier in the year. Oklahoma looks as vulnerable as any of the top contending teams, if you ask me. I mean, you just can't trust them. I still don't think they're going to be standing when it's all said and done, but they've been able to, start out 8-0. The Bearcats have the easiest schedule of all the teams remaining, but, I think that they're going to be competing against them internally. I think, like I said about the Bengals earlier, it's the Bengals versus the Bengals on Sunday. The Bearcats' toughest opponent each week is going to be themselves. Do they believe in themselves to be able to blow these opponents out convincingly enough to remain sexy in the eyes of the committee? I'm amazed with all of this happening right now. It's one of my favorite college football seasons during the playoff era. But where are you at with Ohio State? I believe Georgia and Ohio State are playing the two most dominant right now. Where are you at with where you think the top four could potentially fall?
Yeah, so if I had a vote right now, I would have Georgia number 1. I would have Ohio State number 2. I'd have Alabama number 3, and number 4 is really up for grabs. And you're right, Alabama's been a little inconsistent. I don't believe in Oklahoma at all. And we all thought that the quarterback change was going to fix everything. And Caleb Williams has had a few great plays, but Oklahoma does not look dominant to me. So, at the end of the day, I think the committee is going to tell us on Tuesday. I think that the committee is going to give Alabama and Ohio State both a lot of love. That's real, And what's crazy is that this has been the most unpredictable college football season in history, and we might end up with the most predictable Final Four we could possibly imagine, with 2 SEC teams, a Big Ten team, and a Big 12 team, right? So that's what's crazy. I want Cincinnati to make this playoff so bad, that, and I've been just such a proponent for it every single year. But until the committee shows us that they'll respect us, I just don't know that it's going to happen. So, Tuesday, shameless plug, you can check out the rankings reaction digitally on all the ESPN platforms. Golick Jr., Christine Williamson, and I will be back at 8 p.m. on Tuesday reacting to it. But if Cincinnati isn't number 2, I don't think they're going to make the college football playoff, because there is so much runway left ahead for everybody else. Everybody else is going to have the chance for big wins. Cincinnati is going to have to win every game by 35, and they're going to have an immediate respect from the committee to make it.
Yeah, and Jason, we're done. I appreciate your time, but to piggyback off that real quick, I think we talked about this last week, but Bearcat fans are getting mad at me, but I said if they're not in the first college football playoff poll, their only hope of making it is them continuing to win out and chaos in front of them, because I don't think the committee wants to put them in while they're undefeated right now, because if they remain undefeated the rest of the way, no matter what happens, they can't take Cincinnati out of the top 4 once they're in there, assuming that they go undefeated and win their conference title. I think that they're going to leave them out at 5 as a buffer, and that they're going to need one of the an Oklahoma, an Alabama to slip up again, Ohio State to be eliminated with the second loss. I think that Cincinnati, if I had to predict, they're coming in, regardless of 1 through 4, I'm putting money on them coming in at 5 a week from last night. So we shall see.
If they come in at 5, my friend, I don't think they're going to make it no matter what happens. We'll see how it plays out. That's not what I want for everybody listening. It's not what I want. It's just what I think the committee's going to do. All
right. Give Jason Fitz a follow on Twitter at Jason Fitz. He has the best method to picking his winners for each week. I love dogs. I love animals. By the way, I absolutely love that segment you do on Twitter each week, having your dog pick the winners. I think that's hilarious. So good stuff. But
appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Take care, Jason.
Thanks, bye.
518-1410, 518-1410. That was ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. Of course, we're talking all things college football playoff. The first poll comes out a week from last night. And like I said, there was a lot to dissect there, but things aren't looking or sounding positive for Cincinnati. Like I said, I don't think that they're in the top 4 next week. People are like, well, they're in the top, they're number 2 team in the country. I think that was coaches giving the Bearcats a little pity vote, knowing that the Bearcats are, and by the way, you could say that they're going to get screwed. They're not getting screwed. I keep seeing people say the committee is going to screw the Bearcats. No, they're not. No, they're not. I mean, really, Michigan beats Michigan State. Ohio State beats Penn State this coming up Saturday. Those 2 teams could be 3 and 4. Georgia and Alabama could be 1 and 2 with Oklahoma at 5. Michigan, if they beat Michigan State coming up, they deserve to be at number 4 more than Oklahoma does, who has continued to look vulnerable, who they don't have a top quality win either. So Michigan would have the better win. Now the Bearcats have a good win over Notre Dame, but again, they have that one game. But if you compare the weak opponents for everybody, Cincinnati is weaker than everyone. You can't say Indiana is a good win for a Cincinnati anymore, unless you can convince me that Indiana was a huge win for Ohio State. Was Indiana a huge win for Ohio State? No. So how can it be a huge win for Cincinnati? We'll be back.
Oh, look, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
We've been expecting you.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Dayton Barrel Works Bourbon and Whiskey Bash is Saturday, November 20th, noon till 3 p.m. Over 40 bourbons and whiskeys to sample. For tickets, call 937-228-2337. Dayton Barrel Works, 318 East 2nd Street in Dayton.
I struggled with symptoms like frequent gas and stomach pain for years.
I was bloated all the time with daily diarrhea.
At first, I thought it was what I was eating.
I kept thinking it was stomach issues.
So I did my research and talked to my doctor, and we finally uncovered the truth.
It was actually EPI. Exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, is a condition where your pancreas is unable to help break down your food.
It can lead to symptoms like diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, unexplained weight loss, and oily stools.
And EPI symptoms can be confused with those of other common digestive conditions, like irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's, and celiac disease.
So getting to the right diagnosis meant being more open with my doctor about the severity of my symptoms and how often they were happening.
But there's good news. EPI is manageable, so don't wait any longer. Use the symptom checker at identifyepi.com and schedule a visit or call with your doctor to ask, could I have EPI?
Sponsored by AbbVie.
No matter the forecast, it's a good day to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
When getting the job done right is job one, you need construction equipment that's built right. From compact track loaders to the world's #1 selling compact excavator, the Kubota construction lineup features durable Kubota engines, more comfort, and the versatility to do it all and do it right. Visit your local Kubota dealer today. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
See Columbus Equipment Company, 7570 New Carlisle Pike in Dayton. Mow like a pro with Hustler Turf zero-turn mowers. They engineer their mowers to be maintenance and service friendly for the everyday homeowner, while not sacrificing the build and cut quality they're known for. From the heavy-duty frame to the welded steel deck to their trademark smooth track steering, Hustler Turf zero-turn mowers deliver professional grade cut quality for a perfectly manicured lawn. Come in to Small Engine Service Pros to see the Hustler difference for yourself today. Small Engine Service Pros, 2030 North Dayton Lakeview Road, Route 235 in New Carlisle.
Hello, I'm Clerk of Court Rob Scott, serving Kettering, Centerville, Moraine, and Washington Township. From October 18th to October 29th, you can come to Kettering Municipal Court and pay off half your fines and costs, and the other half will be waived. There is nothing to fear. Come pay off half your fee.
This is brought to you by Rob Scott, Clerk of Court.
This is the sound of a popular American motorcycle. It's the sound of freedom, the open road, really good times. And this is what it sounds like with a drunk guy on it. How do you like the sound of that? Cops are cracking down on drunk motorcycle riders. If you ride drunk, you will get caught and you will get arrested. Drunk riding, over the limit, under arrest. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Whether you're vaccinated or not, it's important to know the symptoms of COVID and its variants. Fever is the leading sign of COVID and the flu, so make sure you use an accurate thermometer. Only the Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer has been proven accurate with more than 100 clinical studies. Non-contact thermometers have no clinical evidence behind them and are not reliable. Be vigilant and seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Jay Farner here, CEO of Rocket Companies. If you thought you missed your chance to refinance and save, think again. Mortgage rates have recently dropped, and Rocket Mortgage can help you save big when you call 8338-ROCKET today. For example, with a $250,000 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, you could get a new low rate under 3%. If your current rate is over 3.75%, you could lower your payment by over $100 a month, saving thousands in interest. But you've got to act now, because no one knows how long these low rates will last. So when you need a simple way to get big savings, Rocket can. Call us today at 8338-ROCKET or go to rocketmortgage.com. That's 8338-ROCKET or go to rocketmortgage.com. Rocket.
Refinance offer assumes a rate of 2.99%, 3.21% APR, 70% loan-to-value ratio for the cost of 1.75 points. $4,375 due at closing. Monthly payment of $1,052.66. Taxes and insurance not included. Payment will be greater. Rates current as of 7/26/21. Conditions apply. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Sip and save at Circle K. Enjoy one coffee or fountain drink every day for only $5.99 a month. Sign up in store or at CircleK.com.
He's a former Buckeyes great and now a college football Hall of Famer. And don't forget about his 13 years of NFL experience playing for the Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, and the New England Patriots. He's Dayton's own Keith Byers. Hang out with him every Monday at noon on The Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. On Twitter, make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER. And ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle.
You know a spot, but not just a spot, the spot. Actually, with the all-new Nissan Frontier, you know a bunch of them. But the key to these great spots? Being able to reach them in the first place. Your spot is out there. Find your Frontier in the all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier with standard 310 horsepower, advanced tech, and 281 pound-foot of torque.
Gentlemen, now you can find the best brands and fits for you without even trying. Just follow these easy instructions. Step 1, shop a personalized store that does all the work for you by customizing a selection for your taste and body. Step 2, level up your closet with the best brands and fits with little to no effort. Not trying has never looked so good. Introducing Stitch Fix Freestyle, your personalized store. We're so you.
What is it that makes you uniquely you? Well, DuckDuckGo doesn't think that's any of their business, and frankly, it shouldn't be the business of any tech company. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo.
Football fans, the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show is officially back. Every Sunday morning starting at 11:30 a.m., College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and Justin Kinner will be live at Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. The guys will recap the biggest games from college football Saturday, including your Ohio State Buckeyes. The guys will also get you set up for the day's biggest NFL matchups, featuring your Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, and more. It's the Sunday Morning Tailgate Show, live from Frickers on 741, Sunday mornings at 11:30 on 1410 ESPN Radio. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com. We're live. We're local. We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Mine is Kev Nash today on a Wednesday. Appreciate ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. Took some time to hang out with us. Jason Fitz, of course, does the College Football Playoff Rankings Reaction Show. Give him a follow on Twitter at Jason Fitz. Him and Mike Golick Jr. do a fantastic job with that. A very interactive reaction show again on Tuesday as the rankings are coming out. And we appreciate Jason. You know, he hangs out with us each and every week on the show. We talk college football playoffs. We talk NFL. Talk about your Bengals and the Browns and the Buckeyes and all of that. So if you missed that, that will be up on the website at wingam.com. You can also download and subscribe to the Justin Kinner Show podcast in your Apple iTunes and Google Play Store. So an interesting storyline that developed yesterday was Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, we here in Dayton know exactly what it feels like when you have a coach that is very desirable that other programs and other teams want. And we live in a world of fear all the time when it comes to every time we have a coach that starts to have success, how long will they stay before they are plucked and go to a bigger program? The NFL, as far as Mike Tomlin's concerned, a little bit different, but you know how stressful that could be when you start hearing rumblings about programs wanting your coach. How do you think Bearcats feel? How do you think Bearcats fans feel right now when it comes to Luke Fickell? Whether it's the USC job or whether it's the LSU job, and really a lot of the big names that are being thrown out there for these two jobs, those fan bases, whether it be Penn State and James Franklin, or Cincinnati with Luke Fickell, or the Steelers with Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin responded in a way to these coaching rumors that I wish more coaches would respond in a manner of. Now, I also don't understand why he was so angry. It's not like in the NFL you have to worry about recruiting and everything kind of going awry because there's too many reports that you won't be there long. But I did find it interesting how angry Mike Tomlin got when a lot of those reports started coming out about him taking a potential USC job, which Mike Tomlin at USC, I think it would work. I think Mike Tomlin at any program would work in college. I mean, he is one of the few head coaches in the NFL that I feel when he walks into a room, the players sit up. He's one of the few coaches in the NFL that I feel like these grown millionaire men look at and respect and want to play for. Aaron Rodgers, there is a reason a few weeks ago you started hearing Aaron Rodgers say how much he loves Mike Tomlin, how much he loves the Steelers, how much he would love to play for how much he respects Mike Tomlin for what he gets out of his team and the way that the players love him. All of that, I believe, was Aaron Rodgers knowing exactly what he's doing. He doesn't like talking to his management. He loves basically throwing that out there so that his management and ownership gets a piece of that, so they know when it's time to come trade him in the offseason, he's already throwing out feelers of where he wants to go. But if Mike Tomlin did taking that USC job or did take another coaching job, that would actually make the AFC a little interesting, because I do think that Aaron Rodgers is a very good chance that he is throwing in the black and yellow next year. I think that he is the Steelers' next quarterback, barring any kind of setback in what the Steelers would have to give up to get him. They would have to give up a lot. They would have to give up a lot of draft picks. But if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have never been big on rebuilding. In my lifetime, I can't remember a time the Steelers never rebuild. They go at it. They go at it to win. I'll never forget when they got Fitzpatrick a few years ago. Ben Roethlisberger goes down with a season-ending injury. And you would think that that was the sign that the Steelers were just going to hit not the reset button, like blowing it all up, but that they would just call it a year. You know what I mean? When your guy goes down, it's like, okay, this just isn't our year. Let's just fight through this year, and we'll reevaluate at the end. The Steelers gave up draft capital to go get Fitzpatrick because you know what they said? They said, you know what? We're not with Big Ben out at that time. Keep in mind the Steelers' offense was really potent a few years ago. They could move the ball. Okay, they were a good offense a few years ago, and they could have said, well, we don't have a chance of scoring points. We're just going to call it a year. We'll just reevaluate, move on. Well, the Steelers front office said, no, we're going to win. We want to win. We want to win now. Even if we don't have the best quarterback, whether, you look at the backup quarterbacks that they had, Duck Hodges at the time, and you look at all the guys that they have, they said, you know what, forget it. We're going to go get Fitzpatrick. We're going to give up draft pieces to go load up our secondary, to load up our defense. And that's what they did. They said, if we're not going to win games offensively because Big Ben's out, we're damn sure going to win games defensively. They missed the playoffs. They finished the year at 500. They finished 8-8. Mike Tomlin's never finished under 500, which is beyond impressive if you ask me. That right there shows that the Steelers, they don't look to rebuild. They just they're going to make whatever move necessary to win then. Why would you give up draft capital to go get a defensive player to help you win now when your quarterback's out? Because the Steelers don't view anything in regards to rebuilding. Everything is, well, the cards we've been dealt are our quarterback is out. So what do we got to do? Well, we got to load up on the defensive side of the ball and let the defense win us games here in this season. And then we'll reevaluate at the end of the year. That's what they did. So the Steelers have no problem. They will give up draft capital to get Aaron Rodgers if it comes down to it. Now, I did get a little excited because I thought, man, if Mike Tomlin does take that USC job and he does leave Pittsburgh, that's the one spot that Aaron Rodgers wanted to go. And it makes sense. You have some weapons there. You have Claypool. You have Washington. You have quite a few good weapons. You just drafted a good running back in Najee Harris. They can get the offensive line figured out in the offseason, bring in Aaron Rodgers, and boom, with that defense, the Steelers, they're ready to rock. They're ready to roll. And I believe that could be the case a year from now. But the other team I thought made a lot of sense for Aaron Rodgers is a team that I've been sitting here screaming and pounding the table and everything else, defending their quarterback, and that's Baker Mayfield. I actually think the Cleveland Browns would make a ton of sense for Aaron Rodgers. There's not a lot of teams out there that Aaron Rodgers can go to and be instant Super Bowl contenders. There's a lot of teams that he can go to and they're instant playoff contenders. They're not instant Super Bowl contenders. The Niners, I thought, would be a good fit, but they're not going to trade to within the NFC. The Niners just moved up to get Trey Lance, so that's not going to work. So the Niners are off the table. Maybe the Raiders, but the Raiders right now, they're like, well, we're pretty solid. We don't need to give up a lot. We don't need to give up a lot to go. If I'm the Raiders, we don't need to give up a lot to go get an Aaron Rodgers. We're pretty dang good. And to get Aaron Rodgers, we would have to sell half our team to get him, and that doesn't do us any favors. It makes us interesting. It doesn't do us any favors. Lessening our roster to get Aaron Rodgers in a division that will be much improved with Justin Herbert and the Chargers and with, of course, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I mean, look out. Maybe Denver goes after him. Possibly. We've seen Denver do this in the past. Denver's name was brought up in the offseason when it came to potential landing spot for him. I think he most likely ends up in Pittsburgh. But Cleveland, to me, is the next best option for Aaron Rodgers. Cleveland, I have no trust or faith in being able to build a long-term winner. They invested heavily in the roster. They put a contender together very quickly. Where do they go from here with roster management? Because the Green Bay Packers need to come out on the other side pretty as well. So we could talk like this. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they could give up a lot of draft capital to get Aaron Rodgers. But keep in mind, the Packers want a quarterback. Sure, they have Jordan Love, but they don't feel very confident in Jordan Love. If there's a package out there that can get them a quarterback, look out. But the draft is horrible for quarterbacks. I looked at Todd McShay's, Mel Kiper's draft board already, looking way ahead to the draft, and there's no quarterbacks on the top 5 picks. That's mind-blowing to me. So the Packers aren't going to get – there's no quarterbacks in the draft that are even worth going that high, and all of them keep falling back. You're not finding a franchise quarterback late in that draft. I mean, yes, it's possible. Tom Brady, blah, 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 blah. I get it. That ain't happening. The Cleveland Browns are the only team that can offer really good players and draft picks and a quarterback. The Cleveland Browns could give up a lot of draft picks and Baker Mayfield and OBJ to the Packers to get Aaron Rodgers. What could the Steelers give up? A lot of draft picks. Mason Rudolph and draft picks? No, that ain't going to work. Packers aren't going to take that. There's a lot of teams that make realistic sense to send Aaron Rodgers to. You could send Aaron Rodgers to Denver. Denver's only interesting because of that defense. Guess what? You have no value on the offensive side of the ball, so you would have to give up weapons on the defensive side of the ball with some draft picks. Now you're sending Aaron Rodgers to Denver. You've lessened what makes you interesting, the defense. I don't think Aaron Rodgers ends up in Denver. I think he could end up in Pittsburgh because that's ultimately where he wants to go, but where he wants to go and where he ends up may not be the same thing because Pittsburgh has to have enough to be able to unload to get him. What's Pittsburgh going to give up? Mason Rudolph? Dwayne Haskins? And some draft picks. Now, the draft picks are nice. But what the Cleveland Browns can do that no other team can do to get Aaron Rodgers is provide a top 15, I think top 10 when healthy, a top 10 caliber quarterback. I'll meet you guys halfway. Top 15. Happy? A top 15 quarterback. Baker Mayfield could win you football games. And if you send Baker Mayfield and OBJ to Green Bay with a bunch of draft picks, and you already have Devontae Adams, and you already have good pieces on the defense, your offensive line is set, Baker Mayfield would play really well in Green Bay. Baker Mayfield would have Devontae Adams, possibly OBJ if that's who you sent with him. And all those draft picks. I'm telling you right now, the only team that has enough draft capital and weapons that they can give up to get Aaron Rodgers that would still allow the team giving up the weapons to get Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to get what they want, it's the Cleveland Browns. That's it. Everyone keeps talking about, Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh. I think that's where he could end up because that's where he wants to end up. But I don't think Pittsburgh has the resources to give up enough to be able to justify the swap. The Packers have control here. They have his roster. They have his contract. He's not going anywhere unless they get one hell of a return back. The Raiders, that ain't happening. They could send Carr and some draft picks. That might be okay. But who knows? Washington's defense is interesting. Would you have to give up Chase Young to get him? Probably. That's the level of player that they're going to want. They want a quarterback, though. So the Packers, that's the thing. The Green Bay Packers are going to look at a scenario that is going to get them a starting caliber quarterback in return with a bunch of draft picks to justify moving on from Aaron Rodgers. Folks, the only team in the NFL that could justify doing all of that is the Cleveland Browns. No other team. No other team. There is no other team in the NFL that could justify giving up that much to get Aaron Rodgers and still have a Super Bowl contending team in return. This isn't Peyton Manning on picking a team to go to. This isn't free agent Tom Brady picking a team to go to. This is a thing that this is a situation that a trade has to happen. I'm telling you right now, the Green Bay Packers, the best deal available for them. I'm throwing it out there. The Browns send Baker Mayfield and OBJ to the Packers with a bunch of draft picks to get Aaron Rodgers. You bring Aaron Rodgers to Cleveland with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, with that offensive line, with Jarvis Landry, with Donovan Peoples-Jones, with that defense, who I think the defense has been playing poor, but the weapons are there. But look out. I'm telling you right now, I love Baker Mayfield. I'm all in on Baker Mayfield, but he's not Aaron Rodgers. And I think that the Browns, with the draft capital they have, would you add OBJ? Because that's what you're selling to the Packers. Why would this work? Because the Packers give up Aaron Rodgers. You get a starting quarterback in Baker Mayfield, who, when healthy, can play at a high level. He's already proved it. He beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs last year. Still playing at a high level this year, despite 60% with the shoulder, right? Like, that's perfect for perfect for the Packers. Put Baker behind that offensive line. You have a 1,000-yard running back that he can hand the ball off to. You have Devontae Adams. Give him OBJ. I know it hasn't been working in Cleveland, but whatever. I mean, it looks flashy in Green Bay. Make it work. Figure it out. That's all I got to say. I'm out of time. I can't believe that 3 hours flew by. But thanks to ESPN Radio's Jason Fitz. Kev will be back tomorrow. We'll talk about that more with Kev. I know Green Bay, Pittsburgh seems like the landing spot for Aaron Rodgers, but I'm telling you, I think Cleveland makes the most sense as far as what they're able to give up to justify it. No other team has that. And as our guy Mike Tomlin likes to say,
Never say never, but never.
Never say never, but never. But I kind of feel like there's a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. Have a great night.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio. WING 1410 Dayton.
Knock, knock. Trick or treat. Happy Halloween.
Dayton's ESPN Radio.
Coming up Thursday, we'll react to Game 2 of the World Series as the Braves